Transmitting live from the Asylum Studios, deep in the bowels of Southwest Texas. It's the Joe Rooz Show. The show where we talk about anything and everything. Where nothing is sacred, nothing is watered down, and nothing is PC.
All right. Hey, folks, this is Joe Rooz. It is 1900 hours on Monday, August 25th, 2025. And bringing you the best quality talk radio we could muster without all the bluster. Welcome to the Joe Rooz Show. All righty, folks. So it is Monday, the beginning of another week. For most. For me, let's see. We did a show Friday. So that was like Monday because we didn't do one Thursday. So I did a show Friday. So that was my Monday. Saturday, my Tuesday. Sunday, my Wednesday. Today is my Thursday. So it's Thursday for me. Monday for the rest of you. Well, and it was an eventful week too, if you remember. COVID knocked me out for the week, but we still did shows. We did every show last week. We didn't miss one. And we had a lot of fun with that. Some great conversations. And we're going to have some great conversations tonight. We have Tony Kessel coming up in the first hour. And then the second hour, we have a congressional candidate up in Washington State, Congressional District 4, Jerrod. I don't know if I'm saying his name right. I really don't. I don't know if I'm saying it right. Is it Jerrod or Jerrod? Somebody correct me. Somebody please correct me because I want to make sure I got it right. I don't want to upset anybody. But you have Jerrod Sessler coming up in the second hour, and we're looking forward to that conversation as well. Now, as always, we have a little bit of housekeeping that we have to do before we get into the shows, into the guests segments of the show. So if you would, just head over to our website, joerooz.com. That's joerooz.com. I'll get the thing up there in a second. joerooz.com. And when you get over there, look for our contact section, open up that little web form and send us over any questions, comments, cares, or concerns that you might have. any issues that you might have, any complaints that you might have. Not that I really want to hear your complaints, but you can send your complaints over. I don't mind. I take it as constructive criticism. We're not the perfect show here. Yes, I know we've done 150 episodes. Yes, I understand that. And you think we'd be better at it by now, but we're not. But we're getting there. We're working on it. We're also playing with new software. We're doing all kinds of stuff. We're trying to give you a better product. So let us know what you think, how in the direction that we're going. And then if you don't want to use the web form, totally fine with me. That you could always email me directly at info@joerooz.com. That's info@joerooz.com. Also, if you would, while you're on the website, take a look at our support page. That's always very important to us because we rely on your support. So if you want to help us out with the donation, remember this is a value for value show. And all that basically means is that if you receive anything of value from what we're putting out, we're asking that you return that value to us in the form of a donation. And your donation could be your time, your talent, your treasure. It could be 1, 2, 3, all of them together. Doesn't make a difference. However you feel you want to return the value that you're receiving from us, we would be happy to accept that from you. So we appreciate those things. And then, of course, we have our producer tiers. We have our crypto wallets, all that stuff, all up there on the website, joerooz.com/support. And as always, at the end of the show, we'll go into details on how you can check out all of those different things. Also, don't forget to make sure you head over to our affiliate link with Alex Jones, the alexjonesstore.com/Joe. And I'm sorry, I already drank it, my methylene blue. I really wanted it tonight. I needed it. So I did that before the show started, but I got my coffee here, so we're good to go. My 1776 coffee provided by Rumble. So we appreciate that very, very, very much. But the alexjonesstore.com/Joe, get yourself some of these great vitamins and supplements. They are fantastic. Make sure you use our link though, because when you use our link, we get 10% of whatever the sale is. And that's always helpful to us to keep all the lights going and all that great stuff. It ain't cheap. So every little bit helps. All right. And then, of course, as always, we want to mention our sponsor, Ezra Healing. Now, Ezra Healing is a substantial part of the new wellness paradigm currently being born in North America and around the globe. The global citizenry are no longer satisfied with the sick care version of so-called healthcare. Band-Aid medicine, endlessly treating symptoms rather than the root causes, must be abandoned as soon as possible. We need to transition towards the do-no-harm model of private care that places humanity at the forefront of real health and wellness care. We need to get back to patient-centric care. We need to make that a priority. In this new model, your entire lifestyle is examined and analyzed to promote and support the totality of your body's integrated systems. Ezra Healing is a solutions-based health promotion and disease prevention grassroots movement that is always evolving to best serve you and your family. So for more information, just head over to EzraHealing.com. That's EzraHealing.com. And when you get there, make sure you tell them, listen to my English. Listen to my English. My gosh, you'd think I never went to school. Tell them you heard it here on the Joe Rooz Show. And you're not going to get anything special for it other than just letting them know that you heard it here and they're getting their money's worth. So we appreciate that. All right. Well, let's see. So bills paid. Now, our first guest tonight will dive into the story of life based on music. We connected over Podmatch, which is like, for lack of a better term, Tinder for podcasts, So, you swipe left, you swipe right, the whole thing. So, but it's a platform that's used to help podcast hosts find guests and, hopefully they're a good match. Now, as you know, here on our show, what we like to do is we like to cover all kinds of topics. We like to cover a lot of stuff. Sometimes, the serious all the way up to the absurd stuff. So, and we have met a lot of really sensational people along the way. And Tony is definitely one of those guys. Tony is an author. He's the author of It's All in the Lyrics, How Music Helped Me Heal and Find My Voice. In this music memoir, he built the playlist of his life discussing topics ranging from the nostalgic impact of music, mental health, coming of age, and pop culture. Tony's married, 5 kids. Primary occupation is full-time soldier with the New Mexico National Guard. Tony, welcome to the show. Thank you so much, sir, for your service to our country and for protecting the liberties that we hold and value so very much.
Hey, thank you so much for having me. Appreciate your support.
Hey, anytime, man, anytime. Hey, so we were kind of chit-chatting a little bit before the show started, so we kind of got a feel for how this thing is going to go. So, I like to ask a couple of questions usually at the start of every guest segment, just to kind of break the ice and throw people off. Because they're expecting. Most people are expecting to get right into the interview. Tell us about your book, and tell us about this, and tell us about that. No, I want to know something about you that most people don't know but should.
Oh, wow.
You see?
Yeah, I wasn't ready for that at all. That you got me way off. Don't know about me, but should. So,
no confessions of like serial killer, nothing like that. All right, but I'm not a priest. I'll have to turn you in.
Yeah. Right. No, so I guess the strangest thing about me, I don't like normal pets. We have dogs, we've had cats in the past, but I like absurd pets, and so I've had red-eared sliders, turtles, and my big thing right now is my 1-year-old bearded dragon named Andromeda, and so like in the music world, I normally have her in the studio and actually play to her. She loves like when I play music to her, so I kind of like not normal pets, like absurd pets.
Well, at least it's a bearded dragon and not some other woman that your wife would be upset about.
Yeah, of course. After your Tinder reference, but
Well, yeah. I interviewed Alex Sanfilippo, the owner or the creator of Podmatch, and I even said that to him too. It's like 10 different podcasts. So.
Did he agree or?
Yes, he did. He did.
Oh,
actually.
okay.
And he took it well. I was expecting him to get a little bit like, "Hey, wait a second, that's my baby," but no, he took it like a champ. He was good. He was really good. So one more of those icebreakers for you. What's your go-to beverage to help you unwind at the end of the day?
Oh, snap! I am addicted to Mountain Dew like you would not believe. The bags under my eyes are telling. You hit life hard, and I'd probably drink 3 bottles of Mountain Dew a day for sure. I'm trying to cut back a little bit, but yeah, I used to do energy drinks, Monsters, stuff like that. But yeah,
you do the Dew.
I like Voltage. I like the weird flavored ones.
Okay.
So if you remember Pitch Black from a couple of years ago, that was my favorite.
I've had that a couple of times. I don't really find it too much around here though.
It's phased out. It was like a temporary limited time thing.
Well, it had its run, and we're glad it's gone.
Yeah.
No,
Some of us.
I got a buddy of mine lives up in New York who's addicted to Mountain Dew. You go into his house. He has a separate refrigerator in his house, in his garage, that's just loaded with the various with the different varieties of Mountain Dew sodas. And it's like he's like, "So what would you like to drink?" "I guess a Mountain Dew." But he's a good guy though, for what he's worth. Anyway, he doesn't watch the show, so I could say what I have to say. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
We haven't spoken in about 20 years, but he's still a good guy nonetheless. My go-to, I play around. I love bourbons, so I like to sample different bourbons. So I have a wide range. I have nothing in the house right now, which is a good thing because otherwise I'd be drinking it, and I can't do a show like that. So I've tried. As a matter of fact, I think it's episode number 4. I think it was an audio only show that I did with a good buddy of mine. And we were just sampling different bourbons during the course of the show, trying to have a serious political conversation. And he was actually here in the studio with me. And I think by the end of the first hour of the show, the two of us were so snockered we could barely formulate a sentence, but yet somehow we went on for another hour and a half after that. So it was pretty interesting. It was a lot of fun though. We had a lot of fun. And I tell him to this day, nobody can tell, but if you listen to it, you could tell. Uh, just don't tell
I'm
him.
gonna go find it.
Yeah,
I have to.
it's number 4. I think it's episode number 4. So back to onto the real serious stuff. Now you serve full time as a soldier in the New Mexico National Guard.
Yep.
What are some of the challenges of being a husband, a dad, and a full time soldier?
Specifically in the Guard, when you look at what the National Guard is intended to do and what has been asked of the National Guard, I'm a product of September 11th. Obviously, I was a senior in high school when September 11th happened, which that's why we joined. And so when you look at the transformation of what the National Guard was doing prior to that, which I'm not saying they weren't doing anything, but the nation has really tapped us a lot as far as, COVID-19, the pandemic, the relief efforts we were providing there, and medical warehousing and disaster relief. I've been activated 4 or 5 times for various disaster relief, 2 times in North Dakota, once in Tennessee. I've been to Maria, in Puerto Rico, COVID-19. I've done border stuff. I've done deployments. I've done you name it. And then people around me, even Katrina, other Southwest border, capital type support. Yeah, it's the things that have been asked of us is it's not just guarding the nation. We are, in fact, a full-fledged military reserve, and we've been used that way over the last 20 years. So just balancing that out, and I have a daughter who's 11, and for the first 5 years of her life, I was gone for 3 of her birthdays. So it's just trying to balance some of that stuff out and be who you need to be as a husband, as a parent, and still serve as honorably as you can. Honestly, though, it's the best choice I've ever made. When you look at the professional development, who I've become as a leader, who I've become as an individual, the cycles that I've broken from my own past, it's been that catalyst that actually allowed me to transcend and bust through glass ceilings, to break those vicious cycles of, poverty, things like that. So, yeah, absolutely owe almost everything that I am to my service in the military.
That's amazing. That's great. So, what do you do in the military?
I was enlisted. I was a 12 Bravo, which is combat engineer. So I dealt with a lot of explosives. 2004 Iraq and early Iraq, Afghanistan, we were a hot commodity. I had a little bit of college, so I went on to officer candidate school and became an officer. I'm commissioned as an engineer officer, and I did my first platoon was horizontal, so we did a lot of rough construction. And then transferred over to Tennessee. I served on as an executive officer, the second in command for the headquarters company. We had surveying, design people, roads, vertical, carpentry, masonry, all of that stuff. And then when I came into New Mexico, I was on a brigade staff. We were doing engineer planning. And then my time as company commander, I was horizontal. And I had a small element of vertical, which again is your carpentry and masonry people. But yeah, and then recently to promote, I had to transfer over to the logistics realm, which is engineers are good at that. If we don't have fuel, if we don't have supplies, we're nothing. So yeah, it was a natural transition. But the analytical stuff, I love numbers, which has made me a little bit of that. And then engineer is such a diverse branch. So you have from construction to explosives to bridging to firefighting to floodplaning to there's so many different things that you can do in the engineering realm that it's just there's never a boring day when we're doing stuff. So
it sounds like I'm as you're telling the story, I'm listening to you and I'm thinking to myself, wow, when I was in my younger days, what we didn't mention off the show was, I worked in New York City for New York City for about 25 years. I'm retired law enforcement from New York City. So when you were in high school and 9/11 happened, I was there at the site, and I did work at the site. So when I hear people say that, I'm like, wow, it's just amazing. And I had a lot of friends who served in military, and one particular friend who served in the Army National Guard up in New York there, and he desperately tried to recruit me. Desperately. When I say desperately, I mean desperately. And then I have another funny story I could tell you about something I did to another friend of mine with military service. So he tried to get me to enlist, and he wanted me to go into Cab Scouts. Because that's what he did. And so he was like, "Oh, it'll be a lot of fun. We'll do it together. It'll be a lot of okay, sure." And then in high school, we were graduating high school, and I'm going to get in trouble for telling this story, but I don't think I've ever told this story on the show. So when graduating high school, my friend and I were both thinking about military service. So we went down to the recruiting stations. We took the ASVAB, we did all that stuff, and he wanted to go Navy, and I was going to go Army. And but we went back and forth about it. We weren't sure what we were going to do and all that stuff. And then the day came where we actually had to go down and sign the papers. So we got to that point, the official signatures and everything. And he called me and he was like, "Hey, so you ready to go?" And I was like, "Yeah, I'm running late. I just got home. I was working at the time too. I was like, I just got home from the job. I got to clean up, and so I'll meet you there." So he was like, "Okay, yeah, I'll see you there," and hung up. Now this is before we had cell phones or anything like that. So So he goes. I fell asleep. I didn't go, and he calls me the next day. It was a weekend. He called me the next day. He was like, "So did you end up going? Because I didn't see you there." I said, "Scott." His name is Scott. I said, "Scott, I am not signing up in the military, dude." He was like, "What?" I was like, "You really thought I was going to sign?" He goes, "Well, that was the plan. We were supposed to do it together." I'm like, "No." I said, "You didn't sign, did you?" He goes, "Yeah." So he left. He went to the Navy, and I didn't. And I ended up going into law enforcement instead. But yeah, so he hated me for a while. Until he came out. He used to tell me his title was like a boiler technician or something like that. That says you're a plumber.
Yeah.
Right? He's like, "Well, yeah. I'm okay, good. So you're a plumber. That's great. Listen, when you come home for leave, I got a busted pipe under my toilet. You want to help me out there?" A few minutes. No. But anyway.
I mean, you won. You were at the base of September 11th. Everything that was going down there. So I totally appreciate that with all seriousnness. But if you want to compare war stories, I think yours is better.
No. Actually, my command was actually just, I think it was like 4 city blocks away from the towers. But I had just gotten off duty and I had left, and then I had to come back because I was working overnights.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was a pretty rough time. So But I don't really talk about it too much. It's just I'll throw out that what happened that led me to be there, but I don't really talk too much about what went on. But
understand.
But so let me ask you that. So Duelist Media, that's your website. That's
yes.
You created that platform with the intention to write, produce music that you've been kind of sitting on. Do you have any songs that are already recorded?
Not recorded. I have a lot of stuff written. So Duelist Media, dualism is a concept. I actually stole dualism from C.S. Lewis's Mere Christianity when he was talking about the wrestle between the spirit and the body, like what your body wants to do and what your spirit really wants in terms of connection and a lot of things. And that really resonated with me and what I'm trying to do artistically. So my first artistic project was this book. And really what I wanted to do, I wrote the book so I could record an audiobook, which I just released. And that's why I'm on the promotion circuit right now.
Oh, great.
Is I really wanted time to get in front of a microphone and start to get comfortable with sharing vulnerable pieces of my life. And I guess really until the last couple of years, it was, I don't know what I was afraid of. Like I was afraid of judgment, not being accepted. But artistically, something just snapped in me and I was like, man, if I don't share this stuff that sometimes is shameful, then I'm not really making good art. So that was kind of where I started Duelist Media. I was deployed to Kuwait, and that was my first album that I wrote. I recorded it very, very rough, very rough. I had a Line 6 Pod UX2. You got a studio over there. It was cutting edge technology at the time, but it was low quality recordings. I can't do anything with them. So yeah, it was basically through the grieving process and what I was observing on base when we were deployed, as I was interacting with soldiers. It's really just the whole concept of letting bad habits go. That was that. And then I have a son with heart issues and a daughter with some medical issues as well. So my second album was, it's not all the way together, but a lot of things that have to do with that, like sitting in hospital rooms and, just coming to grips with your own past and stuff like that. So yeah, that's the next step. I'm in my home studio right now. Kind of trying to build that out. No acoustic treatment, but yeah, just in the phases where hopefully in the next couple months I start putting stuff to draft.
Well, it sounds good though.
Yeah. It's the echo is perfect in here, but got to do the treatment so that you can handle the sound better in audio stations.
Yeah, you can't see it, but I have acoustic foam all over the place. The whole room is covered. I don't know if you can see that, but
no. Is it these egg foam type things, or do you actually have the full-fledged panels?
No, it's the foam pads.
Okay, yeah, awesome.
So at some point, I'm gonna gut the whole thing out and do it again, and do it the right way. So I did it myself, just a little piece at a time. So it took me about 3 years. About 3 years.
Me too. I was afraid you were like a drywaller, and you're like, "Hey man, what's up with that?" I'm in between.
No.
If you've seen on Facebook, people post their stuff, and then general contractors just come in their trash, and I'm gonna be like, "Did your 8-year-old cousin build that?" Or
yeah, right? No.
Yeah,
I don't do that because I am not a drywall person. I'm lucky
tough.
I'm lucky I know how to carry it. So
yeah.
Thanks. So what style of music do you write? Do you play? Do you have in mind for your albums?
Yeah, I write and record it from a hard rock, heavy metal perspective. Right now, I'm heavily influenced by a lot of modern hard rock. You'll see there, Breaking Benjamin, but I draw a lot of influence from the Christian hard rock, heavy metal scene, bands like 12 Stones, Demon Hunter, Red.
Nice.
There's a couple middle Skillet albums that I really, really like. But yeah, that's where I tend to rest. But I grew up, I'm from North Dakota. I grew up on Garth Brooks. And so there's this, when he retired, it's how do you go from country to heavy metal? And that's what I wrote my book about. Is I went to a Garth Brooks concert in 2017 in Las Cruces, and I was like, man, how in the world how did I go from listening to American Honky Tonk Bar Association that summer, standing outside the fire, to but if you've seen Garth's live show, it's not a far cry. It's when you saw, and again, I left Garth Brooks when he retired in the 90s country, and you're watching a dude stand on the stage strumming a guitar. Love George Strait. I will get assassinated if I say anything wrong, but that guy stands in place, and I'm like, you need to run around. You need to start spraying people with beer, and what are you doing, George? But yeah, absolutely grew up on 90s country. And I was legally adopted. My foster dad grew up on the old country, Hank Williams Jr., nice. Willie Nelson, all that stuff. And then my mom was from Detroit, so R&B, a lot of your Motown stuff, Michael Jackson, Celine Dion. So I just had all this diversity musically around me that it finds place in all the music tastes that I have now. So
yeah, but I know what you're saying though, as far as going from one extreme to the other. I mean, because I like, well, I tolerate country music nowadays. There are issues with that. So, but because my life over the last couple of years has become a country song. So I just kind of, it's like I can laugh about it now to a point, but in order of how things happened, my dad passed away, my grandmother passed away, my wife left me, my dog died, then my mom passed away, and you know, all of that in a year and a half. And, you know, I laugh about it now, but at the time it was a wreck.
Yeah.
But so my life has been a country Western song. So, you know, so I
Yeah.
kind of stay away from it now. But I'm like you though. I like all kinds of music. I like honestly, my go-to is jazz, man. I go to the old classic jazz, not that new crap they got out there they call jazz. I'm talking the old stuff. I'm talking like Coltrane and older, you know, that type of stuff. That's the stuff that I go to. That's my weekend stuff. When I'm cooking, that's what I'm listening to. I'm listening to Coltrane. I'm listening to the classic jazz. I'm listening to like the old standards like Sinatra and you know,
that's what I'm talking about.
But also don't forget, I'm Sicilian from New York, so I gotta.
Yes,
you gotta honor that. I gotta represent that at least. But I mean, I love Pink Floyd. Pink Floyd, like, man, I've been a Pink Floyd fan since I'm like 12. You know, so I love all kinds of music. The only thing I don't listen to, though, to be honest with you, is hip hop, rap, that stuff. I just cannot get into that stuff. It's just not me. It's just not me at all.
Yeah.
But so your book, it's all in the lyrics, how music helped me heal and find my voice. The description says that the book is a testament to the healing power of music. So give us a story if you can, you know, if you feel up to it. You know, tell us about one of the stories that you share to illustrate that concept.
Yeah, so I mean, the book is full of them, absolutely full of them. The one that I typically share is there's an entry. So basically what I did was I picked one song per day and I blogged about it for a year. At the end of that, I trimmed it down and actually turned it into a book. So it was very bloggy. So it required a lot of refinement, but the one that there's two back to back and I can share them both really quick. So I went to a foster home. Again, grew up, there's a lot of musical diversity there. But at the end of the first day of third grade, I came home and my stepmom was packing a box of my belongings. My dad worked at a parts store. He worked at Napa as an assistant manager, and she was crying. My stuff was getting packed, and I asked her what was going on. And she's like, I can't. Like, she couldn't even put a sentence together. She was losing it, and she basically pulled enough strength to basically tell me like, hey, your dad's gonna have to explain this. So he came in a couple minutes later, and he was divorced from my biological mom, and there was a period of time where him and I were like all we had. I was his little sidekick, and so as he hugged me and he explained why I had to go to foster home, I had 7 brothers and sisters. It was just the poverty part and just losing control of a house. I was the first one to go, and like as we were hugging, Juice Newton's Angel of the Morning was like running through my head. And I like 8 years old, trying to do whatever you can to keep yourself together, not understanding what's going on. But yeah, like, so as we pulled away, I pulled away in my social worker's vehicle. That was the soundtrack. An 8-year-old mind, that was what was going through my head. Well, a couple weeks later, I'm sitting in the backseat of my foster dad's 1992 baby blue Ford Tempo. And the window was rolled down and we were driving to this local town. It's called Dickinson. And the wind was blowing through my hair. I was a little malnourished at the time. And the wind was blowing through my hair. And That Summer came on the radio. And the song is not about what I was feeling. It's like, if you've heard the song, it's kind of wrong now. I don't know if it would pass PC standards anymore. It's basically looking at all that stuff. But that hook, that whole, she had a need to feel the thunder. I'm like, yeah, like that's my life. It's chaos. It's a storm. He talked about the wheat fields dancing in the wind, and we were driving by a wheat field at the time. And I was like, man, Garth Brooks is my answer. Like, I didn't know what to do. I was in this new place. I felt rejected, and Garth Brooks was the thing. I was like, I feel accepted. I feel home here. I feel like Garth Brooks really understands me. When no one else did, I felt like he did. And really, that was why his retirement was such a big deal to me, because he was what I used to replace my family letting me go, and then Garth Brooks is like, yeah, I'm going to let you go too. And it was like, I felt the same level of catastrophe in my life. Wow. So yeah, it was just like one song at a time, getting through the Garth Brooks catalog, and every release that he put out was basically like helping me find my way in this new life. quite some time. But yeah, that's just like the intro parts, the early parts of my life.
Wow, that's some story. Holy cow! I wasn't expecting that, to be honest with you. I really wasn't. That's got to be probably the hardest thing that anybody can probably go through, especially at that age, and try to make that make sense.
Yeah. And I still have most of my parents have passed away. My biological mom, my stepmom, both adoptive parents. Really all that's left is my biological dad. And I was fortunate enough, my foster parents protected that relationship. They kept me connected. I stayed very much in tune with them. So there's healing along the way I don't really talk about that a lot in my book, but there's healing along the way where we're able to rectify some of those differences and move forward and heal from that as well.
Well, what made you start with the book though instead of the music?
It's easier, honestly.
Okay.
Music is so complex. I don't have a band. So I tried to join bands, and I'm from Southwest North Dakota. So like after Garth Brooks, I went into 90s country. And it's funny because you said you don't like country now. Like I hate stadium country, hate it with a passion. But Garth Brooks started that. So it's really weird that I love Garth Brooks but hate stadium country. I'm like, no, you don't tread where Garth Brooks dared to walk, okay? You leave that to him. But yeah, I went from that to pop music and then to like radio rock, your Matchbox 20, your Fuel, Goo Goo Dolls, all that stuff. And then I like Creed, and then I took like a hard turn into like Mudvayne, Slipknot, Korn. Like I went hard. Marilyn Manson, all of that stuff. And so like trying to join a band that is like Korn in Southwest North Dakota is impossible. They're all AC/DC, Metallica. Nothing wrong with those bands at all, but that's not what I was trying to do. And my first band I thought was going to be a Metallica cover band. They rarely touched it. Growing up in a small town, that was the only band there, and they fell apart after high school.
Wow.
So yeah, and then when I went to college, tried to join bands there, ended up in trying out for a Machine Head cover band that didn't work. And then me and a buddy started a Marilyn Manson cover band where we basically rewrote Marilyn Manson songs, and I was into Korn. And then things fell apart there and joined the army and all that other stuff. So, but yeah, so to me, it was a lot easier to write a book, and then doing all this stuff by yourself, to answer your question for real, is really difficult. So I play guitar, I sing, that part's easy, but like learning bass, learning pieces of piano, learning ukulele, playing drums, learning how to record, learning music theory. It's like I've had a lot of excuses. It doesn't take that much. You can listen to that, like albums like Nevermind by Nirvana. Super simple, doesn't require complexity. You don't need to know a lot of stuff, but you can still produce a really quality. As a matter of fact, I'd argue some of the best songs of all time are some of the most simple.
Well, I was just going to say the same thing. Sometimes simplicity is just as complex as you need.
Yeah,
if that makes any sense.
Yes.
It sometimes it's just I know there's some of the more simple songs. Like I think of going back like the Beatles, right?
Yes.
Yesterday. It's a simple song, but Absolutely. It's an amazing song. It has such depth to it that it blows you away. So I agree with you. Yeah, totally agree with you on that. So when you decided to put personal stories into the book, obviously there were some challenges that came about.
Yeah.
Right. And so what were some of the challenges that you came across?
So being in the military, obviously with the past that I have, you have trauma you carry, and it's deeply ingrained in everything you do, every decision you make. Really, one of the biggest thing is breaking the cycle. Like, I think you and I were talking pre-show about like poverty and certain cycles are certain patterns are cyclical. It's not that it's passed down genetically, but if you grow up in a poor household, if there's substance abuse, if there's crime, like you grow up in what you have, and that's what you know. So that's what you live. So obviously carrying a lot of that stuff. And then, after I left high school, I went to college, and I'm like, man, who am I again? Like, it's just been constant identity crisis. Joined the military, and became a Christian, joined the military. A lot of that stuff, there was some temporary relief. But as I started getting into life, it's like dealing with some of the depression and some of the anxiety and just trying to come to grips with who you are as an individual drove a lot of deep mental health stuff. And that was some of the hardest stuff to write about. Right before I joined the Army, I had serious bouts of insomnia, depression, and suicidal ideation that never went any further than ideas. But later on in life, it turned into actual suicide attempts after my deployment, my divorce, repeating the very cycle that I hated. And I was like, man, you can't even do this. You've tried your hardest to break this cycle that were subjected to, but you can't do it. And there's this feeling of worthlessness and having to retrain yourself to forgive some of those things in the past and forgive some of the people that have wronged you. And man, the day that I'm going to tell you one of the hardest days of
go ahead.
Typing the suicide attempts out was difficult, but putting it out as a blog was one of the scariest days of my life. I'm like, man, cops are going to kick my door down. I'm going to be thrown in the loony bin or into a psych ward if you want to be politically correct. It was just a lot of fear. But as I started sharing that story, I started finding that a lot of people, it resonated. And people were like, hey, man, they pull me aside and they'd be like, me too. That happened to me. And I was like, I thought I was the only one. And they're like, no, you're not. Like, I won't talk. I'm not as courageous as you. But yeah, me too. And then they would share the story with me individually. And it's just that sense of community and healing. I did it one song at a time, but really what it came down to bringing people together, mainly vets. I hang out with a lot of military people and veterans and law enforcement people. We have to come together and we have to be willing to reach out for help and do what we need to do. Licensed medical professionals, get therapy, all of that stuff where we need it,
And you know what? I'm so glad that you brought that up because my audience heard this. I've told the story before, but I went down the same path that you did. After my divorce a few years ago, I went down that same spiral. I went back to drinking. I hadn't had a drink in over 25 years. And I went back to that, and then came the attempts. First threatening, and then the attempts, and the frustration that when it didn't work because, and this is not an endorsement to anybody, so please don't misunderstand. Don't take this like this is not something anybody should do. But I took a whole bottle of pills and a bottle of Jack Daniels, and I woke up the next day anyway. And had a bad headache, but not to make light of it, but I did. I had a bad headache, but that was it. And so the frustration, the bitterness, the anger. Now I'm a Christian myself. I got saved 25 years ago, July 20th of 2000. I got saved, and people say, "Well, you're a Christian. How could you go through? How could you let that happen?" Well, because I'm a human being also. And just because I'm a Christian doesn't mean I can't do the same things that someone who's not a Christian can do.
Right.
It happens. And, but what really hurt the most was that bitterness that I felt towards my Savior because of all this. Like, how could you do this to me? All this stuff in such a short period of time. How can you? And, it took a while. It took some time. It took a lot of prayer, a lot of struggle, a lot of talking, a lot of, finding people that, and the craziest thing is you find people with similar stories in the strangest places.
Yeah.
And it's like this.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Like this right here. I mean, I've spoken, I can't even tell you how many guests I've had on the show that have relayed similar stories to yours, to mine, and to others that I know of. And you're like, wow. It's like, I'm not the only one that's going through this stuff.
Yeah.
When people say you're not alone, no, you're really not. There are other people out there. You find those people, you talk to them, you work together, you pull yourselves out of it. And that's the important thing is that networking and finding that common frame of reference that you could just support each other through. That's what I've gotten through this, and this has been amazing. And I appreciate you telling me this story. I thank you for that. I appreciate it.
Yeah, to be honest, being a Christian going through that stuff, you're like, my God's supposed to be bigger than this.
Yeah.
There's so much shame. And really what opened me up is I'm trained in suicide intervention. ACE assist through the military, QPR. I became a mental health coach. Like, I really want to use my story to help people. But one of the things that finally awoke me is I was sitting in one of these. Every year we receive suicide intervention training in the military. And I was sitting in this 1 hour block of instruction, and a chaplain came on the screen, and he was like, hey, he was talking about his own thing. And I thought that chaplain was there to talk about, how he helped other people through. And near the end of the video, he admitted that he had attempts. And I was like, man, if this guy, a man of the cloth, can admit on a video that's distributed widely through the United States Army, I think it's time for me to have the courage to say, me too, and you do. Like, it's like Jesus covers all that, man. He really does. But it's really hard to convince yourself post suicide attempts that you're worth enough. You feel like you let him down. You feel like you let the community down. You feel like it's so, like, there's a lot of shame. And I don't mean this on purpose. I don't think that the Christian community does it on purpose. And I'm still a Christian. I don't want to think that I'm distant, but there's so much shame that comes with that, like, really, we have to be willing to open up arms and, what did Jesus really teach? What did Jesus really push? And how do we live our lives like that? And accepting and come alongside. The book of Job was huge. Through some of this stuff. Gethsemane, trudging through what Jesus went through in Gethsemane, that was anxiety, classic anxiety, from the Savior of the universe. So don't tell me that anxiety and suffering isn't normal. It was stuff like that. So I want to ask you, how are you now? Are you doing? It sounds like you're doing well, but I feel that that's an important question for us dudes to ask each other. Are you doing well now?
I have my moments. I definitely have my moments. I'll fall into some dark places from time to time. As a matter of fact, yesterday I had a little bit of a moment, and there's this great poem that I have from Dylan Thomas, and when you read it, at the outset, it sounds so like, oh my God, don't do it, dude.
Yeah.
But it's not. It's actually when you read it, it's called and death shall have no dominion. And it's a great poem. When I read it, and especially when I'm in one of those moods, I don't look at it like it's a defeatist thing. I look at it like I'm saying, death has no dominion over me. I am not going to fall for this. I'm not going to let myself fall into that trap. And so I've had a moment like that recently yesterday, and I just took the time to sit there and go through that poem and spend some time in prayer. The Lord's good. The Lord's good. I mean, I got to the point where I was extremely bitter at some points where there's a passage in Jeremiah chapter 20, I think it is. Is it Jeremiah 20? Where Jeremiah, who's called the weeping prophet, he was extremely upset with the Lord because, the Lord, he's out here, he's preaching, he's doing what the Lord's telling him to do, but all he's doing is getting beaten down, thrown down, cast into jail, stoned, almost like the Apostle Paul. And at one point in Jeremiah chapter 20, he told the Lord, he goes, I will not speak in your name anymore. You deceived me. You lied to me. And I went through that same thing. But if you read on, I don't have my Bible here with me, but if you read on, as soon as Jeremiah says that, he turns around and he goes, but your word was in my heart and I couldn't keep my mouth shut. So even though, and my own personal experience with that has been, there were times where I told the Lord that I'm done. I cannot, how can I go out and talk to people about you and tell them that, how great you are and how much you love and care for them when I'm suffering through everything that I'm suffering through. I'm a hypocrite. How am I going to do that? I can't do that. And I'm not going to do that. And the Lord's funny with me because he'll let me vent, and then he kind of pats me on the back of the head and says, "Okay, let's go, and let's keep moving." You know, so and one particular moment that I'm thinking of was I was going through that. And I was sitting there in prayer, and I I was really angry. I was like, just like almost like a cartoon. I was like, I'm done doing this. And what did the Lord do? The Lord said, "Okay, that's okay, Joe. I understand. But listen, this is what I want you to teach on Sunday." And he gave me a whole passage of scripture. He gave me an outline, and I ended up teaching a Bible study Sunday, the following Sunday. So that's what he does to me. He's kind of like like an old Italian grandfather, who's quick with the shkafa. The shkafa is, when you walk past him and you do something stupid, he smacks you in the back of the head.
Yeah.
That's what he does to me. He's like,
yeah,
come on, snap out of it.
What are you doing? Yeah.
Just come on, let's go here. And that's what he would do. So I was doing a Bible study podcast for almost 3 years prior to this one. And, I was so angry and I was so bitter, and I was going through everything that I was going through at the time. And I was like, I am done. I'm not doing this anymore. Okay, fine, Joe. Here, now next week, I want you to talk about this. And here's the outline, and here's the passage to read, and just take a look at this. And I'm like, really? Come on, man.
Yeah.
Let me be angry.
Yes.
He's like, no. Talk about this.
That is unbelievably relatable. I cannot tell you. Yeah, that's been my experience with God in my mental health recovery.
Yeah, I just trust the Lord, man. Just trust Him. I get angry. He understands. Remember, Jesus Christ was who? He was God. And what does the Bible say? God manifest in the flesh. He was 100% human, 100% God. He went through the same things that you and I go through each and every day. Just like you said, Gethsemane, that was anxiety. That was trepidation. That was, I don't know if I want to say fear, but possibly, he knew what was going to happen. He knew what the end result was going to be, but he still didn't want to go through it.
Yeah, of course.
That was his human nature coming through, saying, "Hey, I don't know if if you could take this cup from me, please take it away, but your will be done." So you see that dichotomy going on there between the human nature and God's nature. I don't want to do this, but let your will be done. You see the two natures there, and it's. He went through everything and experienced every emotion, every fear, every pain, everything that you and I go through. And he shows us how to get through that. And that's just by trusting in God, trusting the Lord. I don't know how else I could say it, other than that, just trust him. Just, it's hard. I know it's hard. It's incredibly hard at times, but trust him. That's the main thing. Just trust him. He knows what's best for you. And sometimes it's hard to let go. It's hard to put your faith in something that you can't see, touch, feel. But at the same time, he's given us a great book.
Yes.
He's given us an instruction manual for our lives. And the answer to every question that you have is right there in that book. You just got to find it. Yeah,
and it is insanely powerful. And there was I want to say like a 7-year silence where I didn't hear or feel anything. I still believed. I didn't turn away, but yeah, there was a 7-year silence where it's like, hey man, that's I'm still going to church, and they're like, hey, pray.
Isn't that like the worst feeling?
Absolutely.
It's like you pray and you don't feel like you feel like your prayers are bouncing off the ceiling.
Yeah.
And
it's like super difficult because you're like, okay, well, I'm going to try to keep faith. And even post, like after the suicide attempts, there was still a period of time. Like it took a couple months for him to start screaming through. And it's never as loud as you think it's going to be. You know what I mean? Like it's not the loud, it's not the thunder, it's not the lightning, it's a whisper. It's a still whisper, and you have to stop.
Small voice that you hear, and it's not an audible voice. It's not like, it's not like, I don't know. I'm going to tell you, like, I just got to answer this really quick because this is the next hour guest. He's running late, so let me just let him know. It's no worries. it's like when I got saved, right? Okay, so the story there was this. I got transferred to a new command, and I get there, and I was really relieved because the commanding officer happened to be one of my training when I was in the academy days. He was one of my trainers. He was,
Yeah.
so when I saw him, he worked his way up through the ranks. Now he's a commanding officer at my command, and so I went in. And he was like, "Hey, Joe, it's good to see you. I haven't seen you in a long time. How are you?" So I was blah, blah, blah. And he goes, "Right, I'm really glad you're here. I need some good people on the overnights." He goes, "So, so I'm really glad you're willing to do the overnights." Yeah, no problem. You got it. Here's the catch, though. He goes, "It's your turn." What's my turn? Well, it's your turn to ride with Gail. Okay, well, who's Gail? He goes, "Gail's one of those born again Christian types who's going to talk your ear off all night long." Now, the other part of the story is that I didn't get into is because my audience want to hear the story again. But the other part of the story is that I grew up in a predominantly Roman Catholic family. I had an uncle that I idolized. He was the first one in the family to step away from Catholicism, and he went and became the pastor, a pastor in a denomination that I later learned is really not very Christian, but they claim to be. But I idolized him. I was young. I was maybe 7, 8, 9, 10 years old, in that range. So everything my uncle did, I wanted to do, and I wanted to be him, and so on and so forth. So when he would come home from school, he would bring his books, and he would leave them behind, and I would read them. So I would read theology. I was reading, all of that stuff at a very, very young age. He would take my Catholic catechism books and rewrite them. When he was home on his breaks, he would cross out big sections. This is not how it happened, and staple, the correction to it. And then, of course, I would get in trouble for that, and then, around, I don't know if it was for communion or what, but I remember the priest, they said you had to go to confession. And I was like, why? Why am I telling you what I've done wrong? You can't do anything about it.
Yeah.
And the priest got upset, and he grabbed me by the arm, literally walked me outside and handed me to my mother and said, "We don't need his kind here." And never forget it. Never forget that. And forgive him, yeah, but I don't forget it. So my mom said, "Okay, fine." So never went back to Catholic church again for a while, I should say. I did go back eventually, but for a while I didn't go back. And then I kind of went my own way, did my own thing, lived my life. I used to tell people I was the Pope of the Worldwide Church of Joe. I do what I want. I set my own doctrine, theology, whatever it is. But I was, just playing. I was just fooling myself, really. In reality. And then I don't know, just they transferred me to this command, and they put me with this one. And she was great. I mean, we got along really well. We would argue all night long, but not argue like angry argue, like debate. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So we would argue all night because I felt like I was pretty well versed in what I knew from what I learned from my uncle, and and she would try to tell me I was wrong, and so on and so forth. And I was like, yeah, well, this, we would go back and forth all night long. So one night she said to me, one morning we were getting off duty, she was like, "Hey, there's this Christian radio station. You should check it out." She gave me the call sign for it. So I was like, all right, I'll check it out and I'll see what it is. And so I listened to it driving home. And I was listening to a guy by the name, and you probably know the name, J. Vernon McGee. All right. Now, J. Vernon, I had no idea, was long since gone with the Lord, but everything that I was listening to was so relevant to what was going on at that time in my life that I thought, and I felt like, well, this is right now, this is for me. And I would purposely drive home slower just so I can hear the whole thing, before I got home. And then, at one point I just kept on listening and listening and listening and listened more and more and more. I went up into the attic and I started ripping apart boxes, looking for my Bible. And they were like, "You have a Bible?" "Yeah, I have a Bible." And I started looking for it. And I found my old one that my uncle bought me when I was like 8 years old. So it's all dog-eared and beat up and covers falling off and whatnot. And I started reading that thing, and I started reading the Bible studies that my uncle would give me, and from way back then. And I'm like, I want to get back into this again. And so I signed up for these Bible studies again. It's correspondence stuff, and I'm going through the whole thing. And one day, it was a Sunday. It was July the 17th. Got in my car. I was on my way to work for the overnight. And I'm like, I always hear the same traffic mess, same thing every Sunday. Let me see what's on that Christian station. So I put the Christian station on, and there was a guy, and it was a very unique type of a show for me because I've heard talk radio, but here's this preacher, and he's over here, he's preaching, and then he stops and takes phone calls, answers questions, then he goes back to preaching again. Then he stops, takes phone calls, answers questions, goes back to preaching again. Never heard a show like that. And I'm listening to him, and he's preaching a message on hell and who's going there. And this is where I say that little soft voice started coming in pretty loud and clear. Again, not an audible, like the heavens didn't peel away, and there wasn't like this bright shining light, shining down on the car as I was driving. But it was that little voice that it just seemed like at the end of every sentence, I heard, "I'm talking to you, Joe."
Yeah.
You're going to hell, Joe. I laughed, but it's serious. It scared the hell out of me.
Yeah.
Let me literally scare the hell out of me.
Yeah, for real.
And I went to I listened to the whole thing, and I was like, just like consumed by it. I was just fascinated by the whole thing. So I wrote down the phone number. Again, no cell phones yet. I wrote down the phone number, and I was going to call when I got to the job, but I got there too late. The show was already over, so I missed the opportunity. But I looked up this church. Well, I looked up the website for the radio station, found out the name of the church that was putting on that show, and checked out their website. And it was, very basic, nothing crazy on it. And I just read their doctrinal statement. I was like, okay, yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense. That makes sense. That makes sense. I agree with that. I agree with that. I called the church. I must have sounded like an idiot when I called. I heard you on the radio, So I called, and I did that. And man, the guy called me back. He called me back in like 5 minutes. And we were on the phone for like an hour. And then he invited me out, and we had dinner, and he led me to the Lord right there that night on Pier 34 on Canal Street and West Street. So
that's awesome.
Yeah, it was great. But oh, dude, man, I am so sorry. I didn't realize it's after 8:00, and my next guest is waiting in the room here. So,
we're good.
So I'd like to do this. I want you to back on the show. Let's see if we can get something set up for next week.
Okay, sounds good to me.
All right. So thank you so much, brother. I appreciate you being here, and I'm going to reach out to you after the show, and we'll chat some more. So look for an email from me afterwards, and I think you should have my phone number because I put it in the other message I sent you on Podmat. Just shoot me a text when you have a chance, and I'll give you a call after the show.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, man. I appreciate you, brother. God bless you. Thank you for your service.
Hey, God bless you too. Thank you.
Tony Kessel, folks. All right. So what we're going to do here is we're going to take a quick break. And when we come back from this break, we will be sitting down with Jerrod Sessler, running for Congress up in the great state of Washington in Congressional District number 4. And we're going to have a really good conversation. I've been to Washington State a few times. I have some really good friends who live up in Washington State. And I believe, if I'm not mistaken, they are actually constituents of District 4. So we're going to have a good conversation. All right, folks. So this is the Joe Rooz Show. It's a live show, weeknights, 7 p.m. Central Time. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share it with your friends, your family, and your followers. And you know what? We're going to do something a little different with this break. Not going to put the screen up. We're going to do a chair break. Okay? So we'll be right back after this. Just stay with us. All righty, folks. Welcome back to the Joe Rooz Show. My name is Joe Rooz. First hour is in the books. Never did a chair break like that. That was interesting. You got to see behind the scenes there, all the shuffling around and whatnot. All right, so Tony Kessel. I hope you guys enjoyed that. We're going to have him back on. We went way over, didn't even get to half the stuff we wanted to talk about. So we'll get him on again. Not a problem with that. All right, folks, Podhome. Podhome.fm is the most modern and easy-to-use podcast hosting platform. Use it to publish your episodes, enhance your audio, and automatically generate transcripts, chapters, titles, show notes, and more. And did you know that you can even podcast live with Podhome.fm? I've been using Podhome.fm as my audio host platform, for about 2 years now, and they are fantastic. Constantly updating, constantly bringing on new features. They are fantastic. You can broadcast your podcast live through your own website. If you don't have a website, they'll provide you with a website at no additional charge. They will even help you build it. You can everything you possibly can need to have an outstanding podcast is all available to you for $15.99 a month. Just go to podhome.fm to try it out for free for 30 days. That's podhome.fm, podhome.fm. All right, folks. Now, so Jerrod Sessler. Sorry about that. Jerrod Sessler. It's a Navy veteran, former NASCAR driver, stage 4 cancer survivor, entrepreneur, and now a Trump-endorsed congressional candidate. He's the author of a brand new book, How We Broke America, a checklist to fix it, which is already a #1 hot new release on Amazon in political advocacy. Jerrod brings a one-of-a-kind perspective, forged through service in the Navy, resilience through cancer, success in business, and a fierce belief in America's founding principles. His book doesn't just talk politics. It offers a bold, step-by-step checklist for restoring our constitutional foundations, protecting sovereignty, and reigniting the values that made this country strong. He's been endorsed by General Michael Flynn. Big fan of Michael Flynn. I love that man. And other conservative leaders. Jerrod calls America's decline a broken machine, but one that can be fixed with faith, leadership, and conviction. Jerrod, I'd like to welcome you to the Joe Rooz Show. Why don't you come on in?
Thank you, Joe. Good to be here.
Hey, thanks for joining us. I appreciate it. And before we get any further, I just want to say thank you very much, sir, for your service in our country.
Thank you. I appreciate it. It was a great honor.
Yes, sir. So you served in the Navy. For how long were you in the Navy for?
Just did one term. Served on aircraft carrier USS Constellation and was worked my way up to be a catapult top watch. So I was responsible for the energy that launched the aircraft off of the flight deck. We had 4 catapults on our ship, about 1,200 feet. It was quite an amazing experience at the young age of 18, 19 years old.
Isn't that amazing that at that age you're entrusted with this high-tech, multi-billion-dollar piece of equipment that but in the real world, outside of the military, at 18, 19 years old, you couldn't get anywhere near anything like that.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing. I think it's a demonstration of how when you set the bar low, that's exactly where people show up. But when you set the bar high, people will show up.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I agree with you 100% on that one. So I usually like to ask a couple of questions to kind of break the ice for the audience, to try to I guess. Well, let me just ask the questions. So, what's something about you that most people don't know but should?
Let's see. Well, I think as it relates to this, one of the things that people should know about me that mostly don't is I was absolutely completely uninterested in anything related to politics or public speaking or anything of the sort when I was younger. In fact, I remember in high school there was a class called debate, and I remember walking by that classroom. I never once set foot in that classroom. In fact, I would walk on the other side of the hallway with my shoulders practically touching the lockers, so that I didn't get any of whatever was in that classroom on me. I don't remember when the first time I read the Constitution was, but it definitely was not before I was an adult.
Yeah.
So, I'm involved in civics and politics now, yeah, because here's one from TPUSA. They do a really good, colorful
Nice.
graphic one. But last night I got another copy of the one that you have. I think it's from the Heritage or something.
Yes.
But I, yeah, that's one of the big things about me is I'm involved now because, in 2012 when Obama was reelected, I was absolutely shocked. I just couldn't believe that we reelected and we had 4 more years of this weakness,
Mhm.
anti-God, anti-American, just terrible stance. And like most other Americans, I really wasn't paying attention to a lot of what was going on politically. And so anyway, that was a big change for me. Started taking Hillsdale College classes and listening to Dennis Prager and Center for Self-Governance and Epic Times, and here I am today. I wouldn't consider myself a constitutional attorney, but I certainly know it a lot better than I did back then.
Oh yeah, and it's funny you mention all those names because I know Hillsdale College. I've taken a couple of their free classes. I get this brochure every once in a while from them, and I don't. The funny thing is, I don't ever remember signing up for anything from them, but yet I get these newsletters on a regular basis, and so I said, let me try
Yep.
one of these classes. So I did, and they're fantastic. They're
They are
absolutely fantastic.
unbelievably. They're great. I mean, I
Yep.
have a lot of driving around our district, and so a lot of times I'll stick one of those in and just listen to it. Try to pull it up, log into my account, and pull it up before I start driving, and just listen to it because they're just amazing. Funny story as it relates to Hillsdale College. They educate. I think over 95% of their students are free students online. It's amazing, but you can actually apply and go to college there.
Mhm.
They live on American donations. They've never taken a penny from the government. And I
That's
have
right.
a really good friend of mine who has been donating $100 a month for, I can't remember what he said the other day, but I think he said it was like 16 years or 19 years or something. He's been donating $100 a month. And he doesn't even have any family or anything that goes there. And I told him, I said, well, you paid for my tuition. It was totally
Yeah,
God's grace that he set that up. And you've paid my way through Hillsdale College. So it's pretty awesome.
that's a great story. That's a great story. So to round out our get to know you questions, what's your go-to beverage to help you unwind at the end of the day?
So I don't, so many things come to mind. Um, I, I'm old enough, I turn 56 tomorrow, that I get super irritated if I drink anything late because then you have to get up in the middle of the night, which really bugs me. I'm not much into alcohol. I mean, I'm not anti-alcohol, but I just see it as weakness the older I get and the more I just kind of say, it's just not really necessary. I'm not against it. Like I'll go and have a glass of wine once in a while if people are doing it or whatever, but I like the flavored waters, like these seltzer waters,
Oh yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
And summertime here, it's hot. It's over 100 degrees today. We have a ranch. We raise cattle. We
Nice.
drink a lot of electrolytes and water and ice, and I like kombucha. That's kind of unique. It tastes a
Yeah.
little funny, but only the first time. So yeah, I'm not into sugary drinks really. I just, I was diagnosed with terminal cancer 20, where are we at now? 26 years ago, 25 years ago,
Wow.
and given a 5% chance to live. And so from that point forward, I really started taking a look at my diet and started taking care of myself and working out. And so I eat pretty healthy, probably healthier than almost anybody, but So yeah.
Well, happy birthday for
Thank you.
tomorrow. So that's great. And you're not much older than me. So I'm right up there with you. I understand exactly how you feel about
Yeah.
the drinking. I do like my bourbons. So
Yeah,
I'm not.
it's kind of interesting, if you take like I used to hate whiskey,
Mhm.
and it was because I didn't know how to drink it. I didn't realize that like one shot of whiskey should last you like 4 hours because you almost breathe it more than drink it, because it tastes
Exactly.
disgusting. But if you just kind of breathe it and aerate it, it's kind of interesting. But
Yeah.
yeah, alcohol is just no big deal for me. I just think, people, we just got to be careful with it. And I don't think it serves any
Agreed.
real genuine purpose other than maybe some social entertainment.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with you. I enjoy it. There was a point where I was getting a little too carried away with it. I'll be honest. But
You do, yeah.
now it's I'll do it on the weekend. I'll sit out in the backyard by the grill and have a bourbon, have a cigar, just relax.
Yeah.
That type of thing.
Yeah.
But just want to recommend something to you though. There's one of my sponsors is an organization called Ezra Healing. They're based out of British Columbia. Great folks. They they believe in the do no harm model of healthcare, where it's all patient centric, and they try to work with from the root cause of whatever it is that you're dealing with, not just slap a Band-Aid on it, pat you on the head and kick you out the door.
Yeah.
So I can send you links and all that stuff to them if you want to check them out. They're really very good people.
Yeah, it'd be good. I'll just tell you, I didn't do conventional medical treatment. I changed my diet and lifestyle, and God healed me through that. And I
praise the
believe that God's given us the healing mechanisms that we need. These bodies that He created have a self-healing mechanism in them, but they have to have the right ingredients. And just real quick, I'll share with you and your viewers that pretty much, and I'm not a doctor, so I'm not giving medical advice, but I'm just telling you from my experience what I've been through, 25 plus years of after a terminal diagnosis. All of our sicknesses and ailments come from two places. It's either a deficiency or it's a toxicity, one or the other, and you have to figure out which one it is, and oftentimes it's lifestyle related. If it's a deficiency, it means you're not getting some nutrients that your body needs in order to replenish and to rebuild and to stay healthy. If it's a toxicity, it means that you're continually doing something that is offending your body in a toxic way. And that could be the water in your jet tub. It could be the water you drink. It could be the air you breathe. It could be the people that you're around. It could be the food that you're eating and the ingredients. If you're eating a lot of stuff out of packaged boxes and things like that, then it's probably a toxicity. It's amazing some of the ingredients that are being allowed into our foods, but always remember that. Is this a toxicity or is it a deficiency? And there's easy ways to solve each one of them. You can do fasting and juicing and things like that to take care of toxicity. And for deficiency, you can just eat greens like crazy, and you can juice greens, and you can do all kinds of trouble, things like that. And so anyway, it's an oversimplification, but it's also true in terms of, what I've experienced over the last, 25 plus years of trying to live healthy.
Yeah, and it's funny too, because I had this similar conversation with the CEO of Ezra Healing. She was a guest on our show, and the episode that we did together, YouTube took it down and gave me a strike saying that I was pushing medical misinformation.
Wow.
So yeah, it's all right.
Yeah, pretty crazy.
So Jerrod, first, is it Jerrod or am I saying it right?
Yeah.
Jerrod?
Although I have lots of names that I respond to. A few years ago, I kind of got to the point where I was like, you know what? I'm just going to say yes to whatever people call me. It's amazing how many people, I've been on, well, I won't name the station because I don't want to bash them because they're kind enough to have me on quite often. But some of them, they still mess up my name. I'm just like, oh my goodness, it's not that difficult. It's Jerrod, like in the Bible.
Okay. Gotcha. I do the same thing. That's why I shortened my last name for the show. Just put Rooz. It's short for Russiello. So,
yeah, I know. I saw that, but you know what? It's cool. Rooz is cool. Joe Rooz Show.
It works. Well, thanks, brother. I appreciate that. So, Jerrod, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself as a father, as a husband, as a Navy veteran? Help us get to know you.
Yeah, so served in the Navy, as we talked about, aboard the USS Constellation. That was quite an experience right out of high school. Honestly, I was afraid. I did fine in school. I didn't really study much, but I still got decent grades, thanks to some good genes and IQ. But I was frankly kind of bored in school. They just didn't really require much of you in public school. And so I got out of that, went in the military primarily because I wanted help with college. I knew I wanted to go to college, but I was afraid that I didn't have the discipline, the self-discipline to actually succeed in college. I knew I was a punk, and I just didn't know if I could do it. And so I went in the military. I figured, well, some years of that will help me grow up. Plus, then I'll get help paying for college, which is exactly what happened. I got out of military, went to college, got a first degree was in manufacturing engineering, then got a degree in mechanical engineering. Worked in the industry for about 7 years. Really enjoyed it. Worked my way up to working for a company called Intel, which was at the time was one of the leading chip makers. They still are in the world, and ended up leaving there in '98 and started my own company. Pretty much been running my own business ever since then. We ended up franchising some service brands and launched those around the country. We grew to about 240 locations nationwide. Sold part of that company in 2016, and then pretty much got backed my way out of most everything else I was doing when I decided I wanted to run for Congress. Personally, married to my wife, Nikki, in 1996. We only dated for 10 months, and it was love at first sight. But we were both in our late 20s, so it was, mid to late 20s, and totally had a rough go of it in my teens and early 20s, but got saved and baptized when I was 22, and then kind of spent some years sort of reflecting and growing, and God brought us together in early 96, and then we got married in November of 96, and so that's been, I think this year's 29 year, coming up on 29-year anniversary, and we've been blessed to have 3 kids. They're boy, girl, boy. They're 20, 22, and 24. Amazing kids, just incredible. I'll just tell you a quick story about that. First of all, my daughter's in the middle. She's the only one that's married. Graduated college and got married about a year and a half ago now, and they have our first grandbaby. So she's absolutely beautiful, and so we're loving that. But quick story about my boys: they both race. They started racing. First time getting in any kind of racing equipment was when they were 4 years old, both of them. They're 20 and 24, so they're a few years apart, but they're both amazing drivers, and way more trophies than I ever got. And we were at a track this last weekend, and they were both racing, and actually my youngest should have won. He ended up second out of a field of 49, and my oldest was sixth, I think, in the final. But one of the people that was in the pits came up to me and said, "Mr. Sessler, I just want to tell you, your boys are amazing. They're so talented on the track." But they said, "That's only like 20% of what I want to tell you. The real story is watching them, seeing them in the pits, interacting with people, and just watching them in their lives. They are amazing young men." And so congratulations for that. And that was just really heartwarming for me. And that's honestly, it's not magical. It's just raising them in, we homeschooled, and obviously strong Christian family, praying together every day, and just trying to seek the Lord. Far from perfect at all, I will guarantee that. But you learn how to apologize and reconcile and
That's
march
right.
forward together. So that's kind of the gist of my life and kind of where we're at today.
Yeah, and that's a great story. And I'm telling you, it's what I find really interesting is I am finding more people that I have been having the privilege of hosting on the show that have a good, solid Christian testimony. And I was actually going to ask you about your testimony and ask you when it was that you got saved and such. And so I'm glad you brought that up. I'm a born again Christian myself. I got saved in July of 2000, and so I've been 25 years. I've worn
Amen.
many hats over the years. I've taught Bible studies. I used to do a Bible study podcast. I was an associate pastor of a church up in New York for a little while, just to help out the senior pastor who was very sick. Um, I've traveled around the country. I've been to Washington State a few times, preaching up there. And I have a friend. I think they might live in the district that you're running for. Do
you remember what the name of the town is?
I think they're in Olympia, I think.
Okay.
So it's I'm trying to remember the exact little area that they're in though. But they have a ranch. They're great folks. They really are. They're tremendous people. And so God's been good. I was talking with a previous guest that sharing some horror stories that you've been through over the years, and how God's mercy and His grace just kind of lift you out of that.
Amen.
So it's an amazing thing. So I really appreciate that you brought up your Christian faith. So thank you very much for that, sir. I appreciate it. And as a Navy veteran, a NASCAR driver, like I want to hear more about that. That has to be a lot of fun. A cancer survivor, entrepreneur. How did all of that shape the way you see America today?
I think the biggest thing for me is the American dream. And I always tell people, the American dream is real and it didn't let me down, But here's the thing that people have to realize, and this is so important for people to understand today. The American dream is made up of a combination of two things, and one of those is an opportunity, and that opportunity is available to everyone. But the other one is hard work, and if you're not willing to combine hard work with that opportunity, then don't ever expect to experience the American dream. And that's part of the problem with open borders and some of the political positions of the left.
Agreed.
Is they're breaking that equation, and they expect people to live the American dream while not putting any effort into the opportunity. And the truth is, and you know this, Joe, just as well as any other man, if you don't work for something, if you don't toil for it and feel it in your bones, you're never going to truly appreciate it. I mean, you can move into a really nice house and you can enjoy it, but when you've built a house from the ground up and you've had that blood, sweat, and tears, when you've restored a car and laid underneath it with the oil dripping on your face and, fixed it up to being this sweet ride, it just changes the way you feel about yourself. It changes the way you feel about that enjoyment. When you are an honorable man and you honor your family and your wife, you enjoy your life, you enjoy your wife way more. And I think that it's just exponential more than what, is possible when you cheat or you short circuit the process. I mean, that's just the way God has made it for us. If you read Philippians 1:21 says to live is as Christ, but to die is gain. So the dying is gain is pretty simple to understand. We have something great to look forward to in eternity, but what does it mean to live is as Christ? And when you look at Jesus' life, he did two things. He suffered and he served. And so I think that we should always be expecting to suffer and serve, or maybe to suffer as we serve. And somehow there's great joy that comes out of that. And I think that's the big thing that people have to realize and remember, especially young men who are wanting to get married, or maybe young men who are married and are struggling. It's probably because they have way more expectations than they have a sense of responsibility for what God has called them to do in their life.
Well, that's great. That's amazing. I cannot disagree with anything that you just said. This is very similar to a conversation I have with my son not very long ago. You have to work for what you have, and you have to work for it, and just so you'll appreciate it more. My own personal example is, I built this studio.
Cool.
It took me 3 years to get it to where it is now, and I'm still not done with it. I still got more I want to do. It's my favorite room in the house. I love coming in here. I love hanging out in here because it's mine. It's my space, and I appreciate it. I appreciate what God did for me in getting it. He provided everything, all the financing that I needed to do it, all the funding that I needed to do. I should say I didn't finance anything. Everything was paid out of cash, but he provided this thing, and it's a blessing to be able to do it, and to have it, and to also like I did the Bible study podcast from here. It's a blessing. It truly is. I mean, God gives us these opportunities to do these things, to serve Him in ways and he uses whatever is available at the time to do it. And
Yeah.
it's a real blessing, and you got to work for it though. It's not going to be handed to you.
Yeah.
Build it, like I'm trying to build this thing up into, like I joke around and say I'm trying to build my media empire here, but I'm half serious, I'm half not. But it's a struggle. It's a lot of work. It's a lot of effort. I have a regular 40-hour a week job too. I got to do that, and plus I do this show 6 days a week.
Yeah.
It's a lot of work. But something, at the end of the day, when the show's done, no matter how it went on the show, I'm pleased with the effort that was put into it.
Yeah. You're putting in the effort and you're trusting God with the outcome.
Exactly
And
right.
you have no idea. It's really difficult for us to determine, to really know, like, what is God going to use? How is this even going to be? Did I just waste my day? Or was, how you just can't measure it like that. You
Yeah,
just have to work,
I don't see anywhere. I never look at a day and say it's wasted. If God woke me up this morning, he woke me up for a purpose. I don't know what some just random act of kindness, if you want to call it that, some words that you said to somebody can affect them in such a way that will turn their day around. If that's what God woke me up to do today, then that's what he woke me up to do today.
Yeah.
I may not part the Rio Grande, but however he wants to use me in this life, I'm willing to be used. And that's service, and you have to be willing to do that. Now, in your book, How We Broke America, a checklist to fix it, you put a lot of solutions and biblical values and America's founding principles.
Mm-hmm.
Why are those anchors non-negotiable for you?
Well, because I think that what people don't realize is the Constitution is biblically based.
Mm-hmm.
It's a document that secures our natural rights, which come from God.
That's right.
And so, we should feel honored to live in a country that has the protections of our natural rights, such that, it's honoring what God's perspective and position is over humanity. Those natural rights spread out over the entirety of the planet, all humans. But most of those humans don't live in a country that has them codified in a constitution. And so I think when you read the Constitution, which is very simple, 7 articles, 27 amendments so far, you can read the whole thing in probably 20 minutes. It's not a deep read, although some of it in its Old English language can be kind of hard to understand.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that's the reason why. I think God wants us to have liberty. And if you listen to Chris Ann Hall, her description of liberty is you combine freedom with morality, and you put those two together. When I was in the Navy, we would pull into a foreign port, and when we got off the ship to go exploring, it was called liberty. We were going on liberty. Well, what did that mean? It meant that we had some freedom from our work, but we still carried with it some responsibility. See, we were still citizens of the United States in a foreign country. Not only that, but we are also military members of the United States government, the United States military, inside of another nation. And so we carried with us, much like an Olympic athlete carries with them, the flag. We carry with us the responsibility of not offending the people in that nation, and to making sure that we're representing America. That's liberty. It's freedom combined with some responsibility, or as Chris Ann Hall says, freedom combined with morality. And so I think it's important for people to understand our basic God-given natural rights, because they manifest themselves all through the Constitution and its basic framework. And so I think that's probably why it leaks through so much in the book that I wrote, How We Broke America. Hey, look at that. We're live with just myself. Well, hopefully he'll jump back in here. If I'm still live, let me tell you about one of my favorite amendments in the Constitution. It is Amendment 10. It says the powers not delegated in the United States by the Constitution nor prohibited by it to the states are reserved to the states respectively or to the people. So what that means is the federal government is limited by what's in this book. Everything that is outside of this book is the responsibility of the states. And that's part of the reason why I believe that we should decentralize and deregulate, because our federal government's arms have become miles longer than what they were ever intended to be when our framers established America underneath a dual federalist system. So dual federalist meaning that we have states on top of the United States with responsibility over the same property. So I'm here at my house. This property that I'm on is located in Washington State, but it's also located in the United States. And so we have what's called dual federalism. So I am underneath the authority of my state while I'm also underneath the authority of the United States. And the authority of the United States is supposed to be limited. Their primary responsibility, if you read the Declaration of Independence, is to protect us and to keep us safe. And if you read it, the Declaration of Independence, there's a section in there that says that under tyranny, men will do nothing, which is quite interesting when you really think about it, because the next sentence says, as you'd think, why would it say that in the Declaration of Independence? Because the next sentence says essentially, and I'm summarizing and paraphrasing in my own words, it says that until the tyranny becomes insufferable. And then it says that it's not only your right, but it is your duty to stand up to defend the tyranny and to throw off that tyranny and to institute for yourselves a new government to ensure, and this is the key, your future security.
Stand by 1 second, my friend. We lost internet for a second there, and I'm just getting everything back up again.
Oh, you did? I wasn't sure if we were still on, so I was expanding upon one of my favorite amendments in the Constitution.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yeah. I don't know what happened there. My everything went down. The internet, everything shut down.
That's lame. It was the leftist gremlins.
Yeah, exactly. It never fails. Never fails. But I'm glad to see that we still have you're still here, though.
Yeah, I'm here.
All right. Worst case scenario, sir. If it goes down again, I will happily reschedule with you for a Thursday when I don't normally do a show. This way we can have uninterrupted time.
Oh yeah, it's no sweat. I'm totally fine. I appreciate you. And what kind of internet are you running?
I am on the most expensive package you can get from Spectrum.
Oh, interesting.
So
yeah,
I got
Spectrum in our area. Spectrum is like the most expensive and really not great service. We have Starlink because we live out in the country, but in our office that was in town, we had Spectrum, and it was quite expensive. And
yeah, I'm just waiting.
Great,
I'm waiting for I have a monitor up here. I'm just waiting to see if it catches up so that I know that we're all connected here.
My hat's crooked. There we go.
It looks fine. It looks fine. All right. So we'll just continue on because it's at least it's recording still. So I'll be able to salvage whatever we have, so we can make it work. But it's interesting though. You were talking about and the reason why I was smiling. There we go. We're back up. All right. So the reason why I was smiling when you were talking about the Constitution, how it being based on Christian principle, biblical principle, is because on Sundays for the last 8 or 9 weeks, I've been actually teaching a Bible study show on America's Christian heritage and talking about the biblical basis of the American Revolution, the founding documents, and I'm just yesterday, actually, on yesterday's show, we were up to Andrew Jackson's days, Sam Houston's days. So So it's been a great study. I've loved doing it. It's a lot of fun. So I'd invite you to come check it out if you
Yeah,
if
that's
you have
cool.
time to do that. And I totally agree with you 100% on that. Our country was based on Christian values and Christian principle. The founding generation, and this isn't a knock on the World War II generation. This isn't a knock on that, because we know, we call them the greatest generation. I don't agree with that. Great generation, absolutely, but I think our greatest generation was our founding generation, because these men actually thought. They sat there and they actually thought and put this country together from the ground up. That to me is not something you take lightly. They gave us. It's not you don't always get the opportunity to form your own country. And that's what these men did. So to me,
Yeah.
that's always been the greatest generation. And the notion that these men were atheists and deists and agnostics, yeah, I'm sure there was some of that stuff in there mixed in. But George Washington, baptized by Pastor John Gano in the Hudson River in New York, with witnesses, and you have modern school books, history books don't even mention that. They say, well, it's a myth. It's not didn't necessarily happen. Well, there's documentation that proves it. John Gano's children actually witnessed George Washington getting baptized.
Yeah.
There were 40 other men there.
Yeah.
Getting baptized.
I think the thing, sort of to your point, the thing that I think about when I think about the greatest generation, and why I agree with you, is I think about the generation that sacrificed the most. And I just look at our own circumstance. Like, pretty much the toughest thing that you can do in America these days is homesteading, which we did.
Mm-hmm.
But it was buffeted by the fact that we had the money to be able to build whatever we wanted. And yeah, when we bought our property, we came here and there was no power and there was no water. And we're like, oh my goodness, what are we going to do? We have to make a well and we have to get power here and we have to do this. And that's how it all starts. But just I always think about these people back in the Revolutionary War era, and just even prior to the Revolutionary War,
Mm-hmm.
and all the struggles and challenges that happened, during the early 1700s and even into the 1600s and different things. These people didn't have the clothes that we have. They didn't have the technology we have. They didn't have comfortable socks. They didn't have the weaponry. They didn't have the protection from the elements. They didn't have so many things. I remember, and I keep kind of taking this back to the homesteading thing, but I remember, when we first started building here, we obviously had a house somewhere else, and we put an RV on site, and we had like a shower building. And I remember we built a well house and we got power and we did all that. And I remember when we first operated that shower building and then we had the RV and stuff, it felt like, oh my gosh, even when we just built the well house, it was like, we're outside working, it's cold, we're all bundled up, but then we can run into the well house and it's warm. So there's heater and it's all insulated and everything, so, they didn't have any of that stuff back then. I mean, yeah, they could run into their house that once they got home, walking for God only knows how many miles, or on a carriage behind horses or something. I mean, it was just such a different lifestyle back then. And, we're living, I would probably be dead if I was living back then. At 50, I'll be 56 tomorrow. I mean, people didn't live that long back then generally, some people did, but so yeah, they had tough lives back then. We have it so much easier now.
Oh, I agree with you. I was thinking about also talking about sacrifices that were made. Most of the founding generation, they were burned out of their homes. They were chased and pursued into the woods, into the wildernesses. Families were broken up.
Mm-hmm.
Fortunes lost.
Yeah.
It's just they sacrificed so much to give us the freedoms that we have in this country. Not that they get. I know our freedoms come from God, liberty. Our rights come from God, but to establish a government to protect those rights.
Exactly.
It's like something I always say is that the only thing that I want government to do is what it was intended to do, and that is to protect my right to do for myself.
Yeah.
That's where I stand on those things.
Just keep us safe. That's all we
Exactly.
ask. Keep
Exactly.
us safe, you know?
Exactly. You don't need to know how much water I have in my toilet. There's
Yeah.
no reason for that.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know, and I find it comical how they're interested in a $600 transaction that you make between two consenting parties, but
Yeah.
yet they're over here shuffling billions of dollars into who knows where for who knows
Yeah.
what. You know,
Yeah. Gender studies in Pakistan are very important to the American
yeah,
people.
exactly, and running Sesame Street and
Yeah.
and
It's
and
great.
and
200 million,
circumcision.
$200 billion to Ukraine, a war
Yeah,
that never should have happened.
never should have happened, and
Yeah.
it's just I don't I hope I really do hope that the president can bring it to an end. I don't see it happening anytime soon. To be honest, I think that Putin and Zelensky are just too set and going at this.
Yeah, a
They're,
lot more people are going to die, unfortunately. It's really
yeah,
sad. And I think that's what President Trump is trying to prevent. The reality is this war has been going on for a long time, and Putin is a crafty, you know, player. He knows what he wants, and he he's not going to give up trying to get it. And Zelensky is the puppet, Ukrainian puppet.
yep.
And but good on him for sucking billions of dollars out of other countries for the last few years, and buying himself a bunch of mansions and fancy cars.
And boats and all that
But
great
yeah,
stuff.
I'm with you. I'm irritated. I have all full faith in the Lord, and I'll tell you that President Trump and his team, um, you know, Steve Witkoff and Marco Rubio and the Vice President JD Vance, who's amazing. If anybody can make this happen, they can. But I do
Sure.
think it's an incredible uphill battle, and there may need to be some things happening behind the scenes in order to force these parties together to save lives. I think the big discussion and the biggest topic in our country over the next year between now and the midterms is just going to be law and order. It's going to be safety on the streets in America. And I think the reason is when you look at what happened in D.C. under just a few weeks under President Trump, really in just a couple of weeks, he's able to just literally clean up an entire city. I think the citizens of many of these other states and cities, like for example Chicago, where there's 15 or more people or something that get murdered every weekend or
Mhm.
something crazy. People are going to start to ask questions like, "What? Wait a second! He just cleaned up an entire city in like a few days, and we can't. We're going on years here in this city with all this crime and stuff." I just don't think the American people are going to continue to put up with that.
And
So
don't
I
you
think
find it
that's going to be.
amazing? I'm sorry. Don't you find it amazing though how you see all of this taking place under President Trump, how quickly, like you said, he got everything under control in Washington D.C. and the liberals are still out there complaining about it.
Yeah, but I mean, these are the same people. I mean, if you read 2 Thessalonians chapter 2 verses 1 through 12, it's clear that God has literally given these people delusion. That's what it says.
Mhm.
Because
Strong
they
delusion.
refused the truth. It was their choice to choose or to reject the truth. They rejected the truth, and so their eyes are now blinded. They have curtains over their eyes to see the truth. They can't see it now because they rejected it. That's what it says. 2 Thessalonians chapter 2 verses 1 through 12 is very clear, especially verses 11 and 12.
Yes.
And so, that's how you get people marching on the streets, because they're wanting to fight for gender affirming care, to try to, do the impossible. The truth is, anybody who wants to be the opposite sex, they claim to be transgender. First of all, it's a mental illness, but if they really wanted to do that, their best hope is to get on their knees and pray to God, because he's the only one that could maybe make it happen.
Yeah.
Nobody else is going to make it happen. There's no doctor that's going to mutilate your body in such a way that you're going to somehow feel like the opposite sex. It just isn't going to happen.
You can
And
get
so
pumped
these are
full
the
of
same, yeah, these are the same people that are on the streets fighting because we're trying to get, we're trying to get people who are in the country illegal out of the country because they're offending. They've broken the laws. They've become criminals by virtue of the fact that they came here illegally, and they're killing, raping, maiming, stealing, robbing our society, and especially turning our country into this, socialist hotbed because of the fact that they're on the government teat for everything. They're upset about that. They're upset about getting, law and order and cleaning up the streets. I mean, it just makes no sense. I mean, you just can't even argue with these people. I think it's a complete waste of time. I'm so frustrated as an engineer and somebody that wants to rescue our country and our state. I'm irritated that we spend so much time talking about stuff that is a complete waste of time. It's
Mhm.
not, it's like a, I don't even know what to call it. It's just a waste of time. We should be talking about things where we can actually be making progress on stuff instead of that.
I really believe that if Donald Trump went on TV today and said, "I have the cure for cancer," they will fight it and demand that they keep their cancer.
Yeah, it's
And
just pure delusion.
it's absolutely ridiculous. I mean, they had 0 murders in Washington D.C. I heard it today.
Mm-hmm.
0, nothing.
Yeah, I'm headed there Thursday. I'm very happy that it's much safer there.
Yeah,
I go there.
I'm
I go
sure.
there a lot.
I'm sure. I'm sure.
There's parts of DC, but what people have to realize is that crime most likely just moved out. Probably moved over to Baltimore and over to Virginia, and
Right.
a lot of that influence. But that's the way it goes. And okay, well, maybe Baltimore needs to step up their law and order and start arresting people and prosecutors that actually hold people accountable. That's America. Most people have never heard of the social compact, but unfortunately, that's their responsibility as citizens.
Agreed.
And there's a little perspective on this, and I'll get off this, but I really do believe this is the big topic for the next year. The social compact essentially says that you cannot, as a citizen, offend someone else's rights, and it's your responsibility to ensure that you don't step on someone else's rights. It's sort of like the golden rule of citizenship.
Mhm.
But what's interesting about it is if we were in person and I reached over and punched you or knocked you out, I have by virtue of the fact of my action, my offensive action, I have offended you and your rights. I have violated the social compact.
Right.
And so your wife could call the police and they could come in. Now, what are they going to do? They're going to put my arms behind my back and they're going to put handcuffs on me and they're going to haul me away because I have voluntarily given up my right as a citizen because I offended your rights. That's
Mhm.
how it works. And what the American people need to understand is it is your responsibility to make sure that you don't offend other people's rights. That's how America is designed. The police are there not to stop crime from happening. They're there to make sure that the justice begins by taking that person who has given up their rights and detaining them and making sure that justice can happen once they've done that.
That's very well said. Very, very well said. So I'm watching the clock here. We're getting late. So I want to get into some of the issues that that you're going to be running on for your campaign, because that's so. What do you see as the top 3 items on the checklist that America has to tackle right away?
Well, like I said, I think the big thing for the midterms is going to be safety and security throughout America. We need safe streets. We got to be able to feel like we can live freely and safely here in America and raise families and all that kind of stuff. But the truth is that nothing trumps the economy. If we can't afford life, if we're struggling financially with this massive imbalance, if our kids, my kids are 20, 22, and 24, and they're facing, $5,000-$6,000 a month mortgages, if they want to buy a home, it's really crazy. We have to fix that. It used to be when you and I were kids, you could buy a home on, half a year's salary.
Mhm.
Now we're up to, probably 6, 7, 8 years of salary. So there's a big imbalance there that we have to fix. And, so those are 2 here in my district. We supply 60% of the energy from our state comes from hydropower. There's a big move to remove the lower 4 Snake River dams here in Washington state, even though they're beautiful and they have locks and they have fish ladders and they have everything you need and they're absolutely amazing works of art. God gave us beavers to show us how to dam up the water so we can make the land more habitable and grow more things and stuff. And I went down and did a documentary in California on the Klamath River Dam disaster where they removed 4 dams, just devastated millions of people's lives and completely killed the river for probably a decade or 2. Aside from the fact that, this methodical leftist process of wanting to drive to putting dynamite on the front of those dams just because we want to, respect nature and return things back to the way they were. It's complete lunacy. So those are some of the issues. I mean, obviously we have to continue. I did a Doge project redesigning FEMA. I spent 10 weeks on that. I went to the Middle East for 3 weeks ahead of President Trump's visit there. There's a lot happening in the crypto space between traditional finance and sort of the coming digital finance world. I went to Panama, did a documentary in Panama showing kind of the history of Panama, helping people understand that America paid for it, not just the original canal that opened in the early 1900s, but also the new canal, the Panamax or post-Panamax canal that opened in 2016, which we also paid for, which a lot of people don't know about. And so I've been very busy. I'm going to DC next week. I'm working on a project called the Congressional Accountability Act, which I've developed, which will give American citizens the seat at the table next to lobbyists, because right now the only influence that most members of Congress have is their own party or lobbyists. So and a bunch of other projects, some different bills, and some commendations that I'm working on for veterans in my district, and just a lot of projects, and including obviously running for Congress and trying to disinfect this seat from a guy who's just absolutely terrible. So those are some of the things that I'm working on and running on, but happy to answer questions about more specifics.
Now, border security. We touched on border security a little bit ago. Why do you think that that's such a critical first step in fixing America?
Well, I mean, the truth is we can't afford to have a bunch of illegals running around our country, aside from the obvious criminal aspect and the threat. I'm thinking Brianna Morello, who's on Twitter. She just was basically stalked right into her apartment. Just this week.
I remember that.
Some like Middle Eastern guy basically chased her into her apartment building and was, ready to go up the stairs. And thankfully, she's a Second Amendment fan and was able to protect herself. But, we can't live in a country like that. We need to be safe. I mean, we ought to be able to live with leaving our stuff unlocked and not being stressed about it. But, there's also a economic load. And going back to what I was talking about with regards to the American dream, I went to the border and I speak a little Spanish, and I was talking to these people. They aren't coming here for the American dream as we know it, because they aren't interested in the work part. They're just interested in the opportunity, and that's called socialism. When you don't want to combine work with the opportunity, then that you're basically just coming here because you want freebies, and that's called socialism, which leads to communism, there's nothing good in that. And so, we have to secure the border, which President Trump has done a great job with that. I don't think anybody's even talking about that anymore. But the part about that, and this is a difficult part, we have to deport these people. And that's where, unfortunately, it begins to shed light on the difference between leftists and conservatives, because the conservatives have way too much compassion for these people that are here illegally. And they're like, well, maybe some of them, like our representative just co-sponsored this Dignity Act. So they can give them, 40 million people amnesty, basically citizenship. What is President Trump doing? President Trump is doing, alligator Alcatraz. Why do you think they named it that? He's showing videos of the El Salvador prison and sending people there. He's talking about remodeling Alcatraz. He flipped the CBP One app so that people can self-deport. He's offering $1,000. What is all of that pointing at? All of that is pointing at motivating people to do the right thing and to go to their home country rather than to stay here, because we can't deport all these people. There's too many of them. And so if we can get them to self-deport, then that's great. And our stupid representative goes out on the block in front of the Capitol and co-sponsors the Dignity Act to give these people the hope that this administration is trying desperately to take away, to lead these people to the path of least resistance, which is go home. Because that's what's best for the American people.
I agree with you. I heard a number the other day, I think it was Thursday or Friday last week, that they actually estimate there are 52 million illegal aliens in this country right now.
Yeah, they've been saying, 12 million for a decade or more?
Yeah.
I mean, come on, there's probably 12 million just during Joe Obama's administration.
Yeah.
Crazy, and probably another 15 million during, the actual Obama. So it's crazy. Definitely. I always say 40 million, but I think it's probably, you're right. It could be 50, it could be 60, who knows, but it's a lot.
Yeah, and I applaud the administration. I think they're doing a fantastic job. Look, I don't know if you know where I am. I'm in Eagle Pass, Texas. So
I've been there.
Yeah, I'm right here at the border. I'm maybe 5 or 10 minutes away from Shelby Park where that standoff took place.
Yeah, that's not
Uh,
far from Laredo, right?
about 4 hours.
Okay.
About 4 hours from Laredo, 2.5 hours from San Antonio, 4 hours to Austin or so. But
Yeah, it's crazy. We witnessed, the state police chasing the trucks, and we witnessed one run off the road. They all jump out. They all flee,
mhm.
exactly like what they described to us when we visited the state troopers. And yeah, it's crazy. Very dangerous.
Yeah, I was driving on US 57 here, and there's a border patrol checkpoint, and I'll never forget this. There was this little white car in front of me, and when they pulled up to where the checkpoint markers started, they're letting you know there's a checkpoint coming up. This car pulled off to the side. All four doors opened up, and about 6 people jumped out and ran into the bushes off to the side, and they got caught. Border Patrol, because they're monitoring. There's cameras everywhere.
Yeah,
They saw
yeah.
everything. But I'll never forget seeing that.
Yeah, because they're probably going to like run around through the bushes, try to get to the other side of the checkpoint, and then get re-picked up again.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
it's just crazy. I mean, we have to have a secure border. When you go to bed at night, my wife sometimes will either get up or she'll ask me to get up. We got to go check the doors, make sure they're locked. I mean, we live in a pretty safe place, but we still don't go to bed without locking the doors.
Right.
I mean, it's just what you do. And the idea that we wouldn't lock the doors to our country, America needs strong leaders that have the fortitude. If you don't have the fortitude to hold people accountable, like this 16-year-old young man who killed another teenager, and you want to feel bad for him that he's going to be tried as an adult, maybe you shouldn't get involved in the judicial system. Just kind of, maybe go, I don't know, work in a hospital or do something that requires all that compassion, because I have zero compassion for these people. I served in the military. I risked my life for this country and for liberty. And this thing that happened to Brianna Morello, which really bothers me, because we could be talking about her death or in that staircase, or her
Yeah, for sure.
rape, and it's like, and the American people, oh yeah, whatever, oh, these guys came here illegally, and they, I was reading about one today. Some guy raped a 15-year-old right in public. It's like, what on earth? His defense is, well, I'm Muslim, and in our country that's okay. And it's like, well, you know what? This is America. You don't do that stuff here. And I don't care if you think it's not okay. It wasn't okay. And
Yeah.
so we just don't. I'm not saying that we need to have like this unbiblical. A lot of people say, oh, well, you're not a Christian because you want. It's like they broke the law. Like, if you don't have law and order, God also gave us the whole judicial system, how
Mhm.
to, make decisions and be wise leaders. And
That's right.
there's just way too much softness in our country with a lot of people. And I think you can tell they didn't serve in the military.
Well, you can also tell that they secular society in and of itself, that secular humanism that's so prevalent, especially within the left. You know, they don't have any respect for authority. There's no respect for the order of things.
Yeah.
So you really can't expect someone on the left who doesn't believe in God necessarily. I mean, they feign belief. They may say they have belief in that, but
Yeah.
they don't. They pick and choose which of the laws they like, which ones they don't. They're very quick to judge not lest you be judged, and without really understanding what that verse is about,
Yeah.
and without the whole actually studying the whole thing. They don't understand that God puts government in place for a specific reason, and that is to protect rights and to enforce law. And they like to pick and choose the laws they like. They like to pick and choose the laws they don't, and they like to enforce the laws they like, enforce the laws they don't. Secular humanism it's death to the
Yeah.
country. Um, I wish I could say that the answer to this would be this great revival of Christianity throughout the country. I would love to see something like that. This country was blessed to experience 4 revivals over its history. Are there going to be any more coming down the road? I don't know, but I would like to see it at some point.
I hope so.
But yeah, but the left just I don't see how the left can possibly win any other elections aside from stealing it, of course, with the policies that they promote and the policies that they push and they embrace. You look at social media, you look at all these, and I'm going to say it because this is a non-PC show. You look at these lunatics on the left. I don't know if you saw the one with this young lady. She took an old Playboy magazine that Donald Trump was on the cover of, and
she was eating it.
She ate it. I mean,
it's just weird.
Okay,
it's just like the Kathy Gifford or whatever is like holding the Trump head or whatever.
Yeah,
like,
liberalism.
Well, I'll just tell you, Joe. I think the call for us is, can we? I mean, we can certainly and easily be exacerbated day after day on what the left is doing, but can we motivate each other on our side to really truly take the offensive position that we should be taking instead of just, we're going to hold our ground here. I mean, like what's going on in Texas. I love it. The redistricting. This is not gerrymandering. This is undoing gerrymandering that's been going on for decades. That's the left has wrung the water out of that, and it's time for us to start reeling that back. That's an offensive position. I was talking to, Beau French, Republican Party county leader up in Fort Worth, and they just redistricted their commissioners and are bouncing one of the losers out and putting somebody in that's going to be good. So that's the kind of offensive stuff that we have to be doing. I'm not saying offensive like being offensive. I'm saying like on a team sport, you're on offense or defense. Right. I'm saying we need to go on offense. We have to start clawing this stuff back. I'm tired. This is the one thing, if there's anything, if I had to define why I love President Trump so much, it's because he's on offense. Every other Republican that I've ever seen, short of Reagan a little bit, even you can't even really credit Lincoln with this, although Lincoln did make a lot of positive progress. Lincoln was still on defense, but Reagan kind of went on offense, especially with international relations. But Trump is full on, like 9 hours out of 10, he's on offense. And I love it. And that's exactly what we have to do, because I'm tired of getting control and then basically just holding ground. It's like, okay, we're going to hold ground. They can't do anything else for the next 4 years or however many years it is. And then as soon as they get it again, they turn their bulldozer left and they just start going, and we don't do that. We don't get on the cat D9 and start turning right and go, why not? Why not? People are complaining about this executive order that President Trump signed about flag burning. I don't care. Burning a flag is not a First Amendment right. I don't care what you say, and we might disagree on that. I just don't see it as a right. The thing is, if you're going to go burn a flag, that means that you are actively going to put your mind to doing something, pouring some kind of flammable liquid. You have to get a flag, you have to put some kind of flammable liquid on it, and then you have to light it on fire in public and make sure that it's seen. Like that is, we pledge allegiance to the flag. The flag means something in this country. And so, some people are complaining about that. So, it's a First Amendment violation. Like, no, it's not. Like, and even if it was, which I don't think it is, you have to actively and offensively go out and take part in that activity. Go to jail. What's the other option? Oh, you're not going to pledge allegiance to this country? Really? Then do you really want to stay here? Do you get to keep your citizenship if you don't want to pledge allegiance? Yeah, you do. Because that's the country we live in, but you don't get to burn our flag and just incite violence. And that's what it's all. And I'll tell you what's going to happen with this, Joe. There's going to be a lot more flag burning, but it's probably going to be like shirts, or it's going to be shorts, or it's going to be a towel, or it's going to be something with the representation of the American flag. It's no different than these morons who put their knee down on the field instead of honoring those 1.2 million people that gave their lives in our U.S. military to make sure that we have the freedom and liberty that we have. It's an atrocity. It is not just an abdication of our responsibility of what we have to do today. It's a dishonoring of everything that every strong American has ever done over the last 249 years. And it just can't be. We cannot have law and order if we're going to allow that kind of thing to happen in our country.
I absolutely agree with you on that. Absolutely. I don't think I could have said it any better myself. Question for you though.
Yeah.
On farming, all right. So you're a rancher. Across the United States, we're seeing agriculture in decline in many areas, and mostly because the cost and the risk to keep farms up is incredibly high. When children inherit land, few take pride in generational legacy and look more to cashing in on the development potential of land. What do you think would improve the future of farming in the U.S.? And this was a question that was posed by my producer.
Yeah, there's a bunch of things there. First of all, I'm gonna be hard on the farmers. I love them. They're my family, they're my friends, they're my neighbors. But they have to raise their knowledge level in terms of managing finance. And I created a game called the Easy Profit Game for our franchisees in our system, and you can get that at easyprofitgame.com. That's a plug, but I want people to understand more about finance. How does it work? Now, I'll also say that the farmers are in a bit of an impossible situation, and this is not just certain aspects of farming, but I'll use apples as an example because we grow a lot of apples in this area. The apple price for a bin of apples, which is like a 4x4, couple feet tall, bin. They're plastic bins now. They used to always be wood. Those are, roughly $140, $150. That's what the farmer gets for those. And they might produce a few 100,000 of them, or, there's 140 million of them or something created in the state or grown in the state every single year. And the problem is that those go through an exchange, and then they're sold essentially into the retail market, and then the retailers can market whatever they want. Well, how is it that our farmers are still getting the same amount for a bin of apples today that they were 20 years ago? Even though just in the last 5 years, the price of fuel, fertilizer, labor, overhead, maintenance, everything else has practically doubled. And yet they're still getting the same price. Like, it just doesn't work. The financial model is broken. And so there's a problem with the system. And it's that whole commodity market, the commoditization of these things. And so, right now, the part of the saving grace is things like crop insurance and the farm bill and, some different things like that. But the reality is that the business model needs to change for farming. The other thing that's happening is, there's a lot of private equity coming in, and they don't really care about the farm operations. They care about the land, the real estate. And what people don't realize about this is a lot of these big money firms, whether it's banks or private equity or whatever, they're just looking for a place to park their cash. They want a place that they can see an escalation over time, but they don't really care too much about what happens, to that farm operation in between. And so, they'll do their best to try to make it efficient, but the truth is that's not really what they're in it for. And so, I don't know. I'm not going to give you a straight answer, unfortunately. I have some really good ideas on what I think we need to do with the farming industry, but I'm going to openly tell you that I'm not sure how we get them implemented, because we have to get so many people to come to the table to agree and say, you know what, this way we're processing this fruit or these vegetables or whatever, it's broken. It needs to change. And so I'll work hard on it. It's just like the labor issues. I think that's what you got to do. You got to kind of break it up into different categories. Like, for example, the labor issues. We have an unbelievably onerous, Washington state legislature. They're completely crazy. They have practically a supermajority, and that's a lot of the things that they've done. They create it so that our migrant farm workers are working for in the neighborhood of $26, $27 an hour now. That's about what the cost is to the farmer. And, they have to provide housing, they have to provide transportation, they have to provide, all this stuff on top of, the wages that are kind of crazy. And then we have a federal model. And so I'm like, why don't we create a competing model where the farmers can choose from a federal model or a state model? And that would force the states to compete with someone else rather than have a monopoly, which is what they have today. So I have a lot of ideas for what we could do, but I got to win this seat before I get the chance to be able to, put any of that stuff in place. But I certainly hope I get the opportunity to do it.
Well, that makes sense. And the fact that you're not spinning some BS answer, you're being honest about it. That's important. That's incredibly important. Now, you've been endorsed by President Trump. You've been endorsed by Michael Flynn, who I'm a huge fan of. Michael Flynn. I think he was treated so horribly and
He was.
I am so happy to see that there's some vindication coming around.
Yeah. Did you see his
Um,
movie?
I've seen it. Yes,
Yeah, it was really
it's
good.
incredible. It's
Yeah.
very, very good. I would recommend it to anybody to watch that thing. Um, so with those endorsements, how do they reflect your vision for America?
Well, I think the endorsements are really, I mean, there's a bunch more of them too. I mean, we were endorsed by our state party, all the county parties in our district,
Mhm.
people like Roger Stone, who was totally maligned by the judicial system, and
Oh yes.
obviously President Trump and General Flynn and the House Freedom Caucus, who is really fighting for us. Um, I mean, for me, it just goes back to the basics. Some of my favorite people are like David and Tim Barton at Wall Builders. And one of my favorite books, which really kind of opened my eyes to politics and civics in America, was called The Original Intent, that was written by David Barton. And so these people, they love God. They see, Charlie Kirk is a great example.
Mhm.
The Pregers are amazing. Dennis and Susan, they're just unbelievable people, just awesome, fighting for this great country. We're doing it for different reasons than why the leftists are doing it, and I think
Yes.
that's the thing that we have to realize. And the voters have to realize they have to stop being entertained by their politicians, and they have to start voting for people who really want to do the job,
Thank you.
that they want to help restore our country and to rescue our rights, because that's what makes America what it is. And so that's a call, I think, to Americans to get involved and to read and to learn a little bit. I get accused of being a middle-aged or almost elderly now teacher, because I'm always teaching. I always like try to teach people, like, you need to read the Constitution, read the Bible in the morning and the Constitution at night. I mean, it's just, that's the way it is. So, but yeah, it's important to me, and it's important to have those partnerships, and the ways that I've been able to help the administration. Even though I didn't win the last election, I did win the primary,
Mhm.
but I had to face the incumbent in the general, because even though we're both Republicans, in Washington State they have a jungle system, and so the top two, I actually won the primary by more than 10%. And so when we went to the general, all the Democrats voted for him because I was endorsed by Trump. And so that was the only reason I didn't end up winning. But I hope we'll be able to knock him out of the primary this time. But
Yeah, I was looking at Ballotpedia earlier today, and I was looking at the results of the last campaign, and I never understood the system in Washington State. I
so
think it's
stupid.
crazy.
Yeah,
It
it's really
really
stupid.
is. But so, what are your chances look like at this particular point going into this election cycle?
Well, I mean, I'm very confident. I was very confident last time. I mean, it was very close. Our race was one of the last five races out of 535. Not all the Senate went, but out of all the races in Congress, ours was one of the last ones to be called because it was very close.
Mhm.
Um, so but it really just depends on the circumstances, and if it if it ends up being a difficult race for him, then he's just going to call in the wolves and spread a bunch more lies about me. And they spent $3 million in our district, which is the rural districts. That's a lot of money. Every seven
Yeah.
minutes, if you were flipping on the radio or TV or over the top or even online, every 7 minutes you were hearing a negative Jerrod Sessler ad. I mean, just lying about everything, telling people I wanted to raise taxes, telling people that I'm a vegan. I did eat very healthy. I still eat very healthy, but I also raise cows. Like, I love beef. I just had a great burger for dinner.
Nice.
And, just telling people lots of lies about me. And so when you have that kind of money and you have, a somewhat ignorant voter base, and I don't say the word ignorant to be offensive. Ignorant means you don't know.
Mhm.
So if the voter base doesn't know the details, then they're gonna see all these negative ads and they're gonna get scared, and they're like, oh my gosh, this guy's, and that's part of the reason why I wrote the book, was because the incumbent Dan Newhouse targeted older voters in our district to try to scare them from voting, for me, so they would vote for him. And I knew that I wanted to write this book anyways. I had a kind of a mind to do it, but also older generation people tend to have more respect for people that have written books and are best-selling authors.
Mhm.
And so part of my play with that is to try to win some support back from those older voters to make sure that they don't get scared off again. So So we'll see, we'll see what happens, but a lot of it depends on what the mix is. The incumbent has manipulated the mix by getting other people into the race in the past to help himself.
I see.
And, that's just kind of the way he plays the game. And so we'll just have to see what the mix is come, registration week, and then we'll see what we have to do to win the primary again. I have great name recognition here. President Trump is continuing to support me and endorse me. And, I think the people of Central Washington, everywhere I go, people are just, oh man, we're so thankful of what you're doing. And are you going to run again? And, everything. So I feel really good about that and having the support of the voters. But, we'll just have to see what the cards deal us. And honestly, it's in the Lord's hands. And, the best thing people can do is, number one, donate, just set up a $50 or $100 a month and just send it. It's very easy. I'm sure you can share the links with your folks there, and then get involved. There's lots of stuff that people can do for my campaign, even remotely. They don't necessarily have to be in the district. And so get a hold of me, and we can get you set up to help with some stuff.
All right. Well, you kind of jumped ahead to where I was in my questions for you, but all right. So we're going to wrap this up for tonight because coming up on 2.5. Let's see. So who's someone that you respect right now, and what are they doing that that really inspires you?
I think one of the most inspirational people right now is, there's a bunch of them. I'm going to say J.D. Vance. And part of the reason is I came from a rough childhood, had a lot of things to break through, and that doesn't have to define your future. And I think J.D. Vance is probably our future president. I feel like he does an unbelievably great job, better job than any vice president I've seen in my life supporting the president. He does such a good job. He's just so articulate. He's so down to earth. It feels like you could hop in a boat and go fishing with him or something, and he'd be totally cool with it. Like, he's just fine. He's like just down to earth, just like you and I talking here. I love it. I have a ton of respect for the work that Harmeet Dillon is doing, with the Civil Rights Division of the Department of Justice. I think she's an absolute bulldog, and you do not want to get on her bad side. She is a relentless attorney, and she's fighting for the America that we love. Yeah. I think Kash Patel and Dan Bongino. Kash Patel also endorsed me, and he wrote a book called Government Gangsters, which I liked him before that, and I met him at CPAC a few years ago. But after I read that book and I saw him name names, I was like, this guy is the real deal. And when I saw what he did with regards to the Russia collusion hoax and everything that happened with that, this guy is the real thing. And I think we're set for a serious show over the next couple of years with regards to what the FBI becomes and how they hold people accountable.
I agree.
So those are some. President Trump's got a great cabinet. I'll be in DC in a couple of days. I'm actually speaking at a MAHA event under, that's the project under Secretary Kennedy, which is amazing. A lot of these people that I get to train, I'm speaking on civics, and a lot of them that I get to train are probably people that are, somewhat politically agnostic, but they would probably end up voting Democrat because they're Kennedy supporters. But yet I get to go as a MAGA, America First, Trump endorsed, candidate for Congress to teach them a little bit about how this country is supposed to work. And that's a tremendous honor for me. So yeah, Trump's got a lot of great people underneath him. There's a lot of unsung heroes too. But we could probably talk about them forever, but I won't go into it. But I am hopeful that there is more justice for the people, for the J6ers. I was in DC on January 6th. I saw what happened. I've also intimately seen some of the just crustacean from the disastrous mess that has, ensued in people's lives as a result of the political persecution that happened there. And, you sort of compare that to sort of the Juicy Smollett, white glove treatment that he gets for being a complete dirtbag.
Right.
And, anything, I call it the Juicy Smollett factor. Anything that's politically expedient, even if it's illegal, is okay to do according to the Democrat Party. I just think it's just disgusting. So we still got a lot of work to do in this country. But I think the people what we have to realize is, a lot of people, like to complain about the history of America without looking at America in a macro view and realizing that we're always getting better. It's always 2 or 3 steps ahead and 1 or 2 steps back with America. 2 or 3 steps ahead and 1 or 2 steps back. But when you zoom out and you look at 100 steps or 200 steps or 1,000 steps, it's incredible progress. And that's the focus that people have to have.
Yes.
And that's what I'm fighting for, and that's what I'll continue to fight for. And I hope I get an opportunity to do it from Congress.
All right. Well, Jerrod, where could folks go to find out more about you, your campaign, contribute?
Yeah, so I'm on the platform. I actually quite loathe social media, really, but I do enjoy Twitter, even though I'm shadow banned on there. So if anybody has Elon's cell number, please text him and ask him to unshadow ban at Sessler, Sessler, on Twitter. You can follow me there. We also have a Facebook page. My personal one's closed because I just had to break it down to just people I actually know, because I just had too many people on there that were making it to where I felt like I couldn't post things because it was gonna get blown up or something. But we do have a campaign page that has thousands of followers. And then our website is Jerrod for Congress. That's JERRODFOR Congress.com, JerrodForCongress.com. And there's donation links on there. People can call. If you email our campaign email, I look at that inbox every single day. So if you have questions for me, feel free to email us. It's yes@JerrodForCongress.com. It's on our website, JerrodForCongress.com. And, the biggest thing I would encourage people with is don't discount your faith. One of the most disappointing things for me in this country is the perspective that God has given me on my faith is that it's actually real. And there's way too many people who I call pew sitters that do the right thing and they're good people. But the reality is probably, and if you look at the Barna data, it could be as many as 85% of the people sitting in pews every single Sunday. They don't really know the gospel. They can't articulate the gospel. And if you don't know that, then you don't really have the joy that the Lord wants you to have. And I question whether or not you really understand the power that you have in His name. And my favorite book of the Bible is James. It's an action book. It's like the action adventure, and it really says, like, look, I'm either gonna see action in your life, or I'm not gonna see faith. Now, that doesn't mean that you have to have action in order to have redemption, but it does mean that those who truly love the Lord and want to see, want to show the honor and the thankfulness that we should rightfully have as a result of, what He did for us. We would be acting, we would be moving, we would be taking steps to honor Him in that. And so The biggest thing is this: I believe God's given us more power in prayer than we even understand. So please start praying every day and pray about whatever comes to mind. Just pray and ask God for help. And somehow God's given us power through that. And so I would just really encourage people to do that for yourself and for others. Pray for me, pray for my campaign. Pray for our country, pray for your state, pray for your marriage and your kids and your family, and just trust God to see healing come in those areas of your life.
Well, praise the Lord, brother. I appreciate that. That's wonderful. Well, very well said, and I agree with you. James is a great book. It's the Proverbs of the New Testament.
Yeah,
it's fantastic. I never was able to actually put my finger in it and say, all right, this is my favorite book, because they're all amazing. They all have their individual, unique qualities. The Bible is, and I've said this many times, the Bible is the greatest political science textbook you will ever get.
Mm-hmm.
The Bible is basically about who is going to rule who. And you read it cover to cover all the way through. Salvation's in there, which is great. Yes, absolutely. But the Bible is it's a political science textbook. It's a science book. It's a mathematics book.
Yeah.
It's everything that you need for your life is in that Bible. Now, do I profess to know where it all is? No,
we're working on it.
And I think God made it that way purposely. This way you study it and you look at it and you're constantly reading it. So open your Bible, study it, read it, get to know the Lord. And Jerrod, thank you so much for being here with us tonight. And what I'm going to do is after the show, I'm going to text you if that's okay, because I have your number here.
Sure.
So I'm going to text you after the show, and I want to set up another day with you where we can actually sit down and hopefully we won't have any technical issues like we did tonight, and continue on this conversation. I really thoroughly enjoyed your perspective on things, and I really would love to talk to you some more about this stuff, and especially about Bible stuff and about your faith.
Amen.
That's really interesting to me, and I'd love to have conversations with folks about that. So, if you're up for that, let's set something up, and I'll communicate with you off the show about that.
100%. If we want to see people be successful in life, we have to teach them how to fish, not just feed them. And their greatest success is going to be knowing the Lord more than anything else, because
That's right.
When they get filled with the Holy Spirit and the Holy Spirit starts leading them, their lives will be transformed.
Absolutely. All right. Well, Jerrod Sessler, thank you so much again for being with us tonight. God bless you. Good luck with the campaign. We'll be praying for you, and I'll be in touch with you right after the show.
Sounds good. God bless you.
Thanks, you too. Joe. Thank you, sir. Take care. All right, folks. That is going to be it for us for tonight, but I do have some announcements to make, so let's go do that, and we'll take care of that here in just a second. Got to just do one quick thing, and let's see. Boom. There we go.